Krogman?
Aye.
Falcon? Larson?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, department head reports. Dick, do you want to start?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Initially, there's some access permits that came through for Great River Energy, and these are off of highway where the new power line will go west over from the substation, then north, and then over into Minnesota. And these are just for maintenance of their towers and stuff. So I guess I wanted, there's getting to be, like there's another 4 here. I just wanted you to be aware of that they are doing the proper thing and making application and keeping us in the loop as to exactly what's transpiring there. And it's a very good group of people to work with. So I don't think it requires board action. I think they're listed as part of my department head report, so that's what that involves. They also, Bose finished paving that 207th Street up there by Basin Electric. The striping will probably have to be redone next spring. It wasn't very good weather for that, but we'll wait and see how that looks. But I think it turned out all right. We'll do a little bit of shoulder work maybe next week to kind of spruce it up a little bit. And other than that, getting ready for snow, unfortunately. And looks like we should be good to go. And other than that, unless you have any questions, I pretty much does it.
Well, I saw something on one of those permits. It said temporary power line.
That's just a temporary access point, which means I want that taken out when they're done. And the reason is it probably wasn't in an ideal location, and so it was fine for a temporary for jockeying equipment in and out.
Oh, I see, okay.
But to leave it permanently would not be a good thing. So,
Okay, I thought, well, how can that be? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So,
Any
thanks.
other questions? Thanks, Dick. Marty, do you have anything for us?
I don't have a lot, just a little briefing in the jail and so forth. We have 24 inmates, which is an increase what we've been doing, which is still, I consider a low number, 24. The problem with the 24 I have some high maintenance inmates that require medical attention, and had to take one to an oral surgeon. It costs a little money. And so even though we're low in numbers, it still costs us money because of the medical side. So there's always something going on. You know, we're still not experiencing some of the increase of inmates that some of the other jails are seeing. So the impact with the new law structure has not affected us, I don't believe, at this time and so forth. So we're still, there's teen court, I think, which helps us out. They changed the data on that. They used to have teen court on Thursday nights, and they have that on Monday nights, and I have to provide a correctional officer for security in those types of situations. There's 26 on PBT that come twice a day. I have 20 on scram bracelets, and then I have 10 on scram from other counties that come in and download at the sheriff's office. So we still stay busy with those types of things. On the 22nd, the police chief and myself did a scam fraud awareness at the Methodist Church, and we had about 50 people there. So I thought, do we still continue to have individuals that receive something either by the internet, telephone, or by mail of a scam, and we still have victims of that, even though as much as we talk about, we still have individuals reporting that they've been taken by a scam. Also, I went to the Bruce City Council meeting last night. I have some concerns in the town. Bruce don't contract for law enforcement. However, I don't ignore them when we get 911 calls and stuff, but they've seen an increase of some things going on, and I was just speaking with them, talking about the chance of maybe they coming on board with contract law. and so where they have a little more consistent patrol there. And we're going to do a survey of the town and send out a survey. And I do that in the other communities too. It's a community service survey to see how they like law enforcement, if there's any changes and things like that. So we'll see what the survey says. But I do have some concerns about the city of Bruce and so forth. So otherwise, we're staying busy just like all the other departments.
When if you're not contracted with them, how does that work when you get called up there?
We still
just do it?
Yeah, we just go. You know, every community, every city is responsible for their own fire and police protection. Even though, you know, the big thing is everybody pays property taxes. The city of Brookings pays for two departments, basically. With the property taxes, they pay for the sheriff's department. In the city sales tax, they pay for the city police department. So you know, there's always the question, well, I pay property taxes, why do I have to pay contract law? With contract law, you have steady patrol. You know, I contract for 60 hours in the city of August, so technically I'm their police chief. You know, so I attend council meetings and I enforce zoning laws and the dog laws, and you get the full board just like a city police department. In a town that's not contract, they get occasional drive-through, but I answer their 911 calls. I'm not going to let anybody, because there's some domestic things that you know, technically I probably wouldn't have to go there and write parking tickets, and we don't do a lot of that in Bruce anyway. But where I contract, then I enforce their city ordinances. In a town that I don't contract, it's not the obligation of the sheriff to enforce city ordinances. So, and that acts work too, because when you start enforcing city ordinances, then now I'm doing zoning stuff too. So I mean, there's all kinds of things that come and go with this. So.
Okay, anybody have any questions of Marty?
Marty, I got a question on some of these, what you referred to as high maintenance. Are some of those pre-adjudicatory? I mean, you're being held waiting pending trial?
Yes, yeah.
See, and that's a big issue that we keep fighting continually, is because we're holding them. They haven't been judged to be either innocent or guilty at this point, but yet once we take them in, we got to pay all their medical, irregardless of their insurance.
Right. Yep.
We're stuck with it, which isn't right. You know.
You know, if the person isn't a threat to society, we try to work with the judge and get them out on a bond, or get a bond for them, or you know, sometimes they're cash bonds, and then we can go cash to surety, and they can get a bondsman and stuff. But then there's some that's a threat to society, so we don't want them out in the public, and so.
Or in your case, if you got bad teeth, get them fixed while you're in jail.
Yeah,
they
well, it's
find
amazing.
You innocent,
You
got
probably
them
went
fixed.
you know, I have inmates that probably never went to a dentist for 20 years, but all of a sudden they come to jail and they got this tooth and they want a root canal and they want all this stuff, and
Yeah.
we just pull them, not at the jail, but Dr. Huffy, who does our dentist in his free time, basically over the noon hour, he works real good with us, and if the tooth hurts bad enough, we'll pull it. Otherwise, we don't do root canals and all that stuff. Anything else?
But it is a big cost for not
Yeah.
just Brookings County government
Yeah.
nationwide. Is
Yeah.
the fact that when you
you
put them
think-
in, their insurance ceases and we
Yep.
take over.
You know, when they go, we assess, you know, all their bills. I mean,
Yeah.
but if they don't have anything, you know, we put county liens on them. But if they don't own property, it's very chance we'll ever get that money back.
Yeah.
But you know, we're down in numbers. You'd think now the jail budget would be lower, but then if you have these medical issues,
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, that's all I wanted.
okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Vicki?
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have been collecting taxes in our office, and we are done with that, and we've caught up on the mail, so as of today, we are good to go till we get the mail in later this morning. And our delinquent letters will be going out next week to give everybody a chance to get in if they haven't paid them. And we got the door fixed in our office. You've probably seen it. There was a problem with the lock, and now that's fixed, so it's all done. And I don't know what you guys think, but I think it looks just like it's always been there, and it's been a big improvement for our office. We like that. Stacy's been working with the school on the school election for next Tuesday with the e-poll books and working with them and the Secretary of State's office, and I think that's been going well. And we are just getting special assessments for next year in and putting those on the tax rolls and getting the levies sent to Pier in order to get those approved. So we will keep going with the process for taxes for next year. Anybody have any questions?
I ran into a poll watcher.
Oh, good.
And not a young person, but they were very impressed how the training went, and they were scared to death, and it went really good. So,
Yeah, I
Stephanie.
think that the training went good. Stacy and Kristen from our office was up there, and I think that
We had, over 40 of the poll workers that will work next Tuesday came in for the training on the e-poll books last week. And there were some that didn't even want to sit down when they came in the room, but the Secretary of State's office had a couple of their folks there, and we walked them through it from the process of taking the netbook out of the case and plugging it all in to every step in between, and by the time it was all done, I would say almost close to half the group was very, very happy. I ran into some people too afterwards, and they were excited to use it, and so I thought it went really, really well. I'm excited to give it a shot next week.
Good.
So.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mike?
Good morning. I haven't been up here for a while, so I figured I should probably at least let you know I'm still on second floor. A couple things that are taking place that kind of exciting. Last week, I can't remember, it was Wednesday or Thursday, I did go to a Affordable Care Act meeting. The ICAP is the ones that are responsible for training the people in this area and helping them sign up for the Affordable Care Act. And so they went through real quickly some of the deals with it. You know, it's kind of, the act has been in effect for 3 years now, this being the enrollment period, and they're having a lot of difficulties, as we hear in the news every day about it. One of the things I always kind of wonder is the Kaiser Family Foundation has on their website a calculator to help you decide how much your cost would be. And I just had a gentleman in my office earlier this morning, and we went through the Kaiser Family Foundation. If he were to be making, the key to it is you have to make over the poverty level for any of the tax credits to kick in. If you're below, it's right around $11,500 a year in income. You actually don't qualify for any of the Affordable Care Act provisions. If you're over that amount, though, a 63-year-old man making $12,000 a year, their insurance premiums would be right at $20 a month. So it's kind of exciting for us because now, as long as they make over that federal minimum, they should be able to afford health insurance, and that would take it off the county having to pick up those bills from the hospitals. There are going to be certain individuals that don't fall under the law, that still fall through the cracks, that we will still be responsible for covering. But I'm kind of fired up about that part. Hopefully it'll work out, and our budget will be a lot smaller next year. So, we're also working, there's a group of about 7 of the counties that are currently talking about getting together and looking at each of our policy manuals for each of the counties, reviewing them, and seeing if we can get some kind of a standardized way to get the county welfare to all policies to be a little bit more in line. We have the state laws and the state manuals, but we're each looking at, for instance, our burial costs here. We have an agreement for $3,000. Some have more, some have less. Those numbers probably won't change, but just how that is processed or how it's put out, you know, and so we're looking at having a little bit more uniform across county lines in that area. And so that's the human services side, if you like. And for the veteran side, right now, we're currently working on bringing in national trainers to train for everyone to get the more accreditations with the VA on processing those claims, and that's going to be for the entire state of South Dakota. And that's actually done through the County Veteran Service Officers Association that's doing that. Any other questions? I guess anyway. Oh.
Is that training gonna be done here?
It'll be done in Pierre
Oh.
in connection with the annual training we have there. If it doesn't work out, that is one of the things that I have spoken with some of the different motels in the area in Brookings, and some of them, if we can't get it to work out there, that it'd be a possibility to bring it to Brookings because the motels have agreed to accept state rates. And if we can do state rate along with the per diem, a lot more of the counties would be able to afford it. Right now, the only place to get this training is to go out to national, and that's going to be about $2,000, $2,500. Whereas if we can get it done here, it'd be less than half that much. So.
Okay, any other questions for Mike? Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
I put a staff report in your online folder, but one thing that's not on there is yesterday our building inspector turned in his letter of resignation as of 1 January 2014. So that's one thing that's not in the thing. Other than that, just going down, we had 2 full-scale exercises in the middle of October, and I put the after action on the full scale that we did for Basin Electric in your packet. And that's just a modified version. I sent a more complete version to Pierre. And ICS training, we start our ICS training tomorrow, and it will go for, the reason for the ICS training, I inserted also in your packet was the local EOC and regional support team pilot project. That breaks down what we need for an EOC, or what the state considers we need for an EOC, which is an EOC manager, which would be myself, and Megan Thoreau would be the alternate EOC manager, public information officer, EOC planning section chief, logistics section chief, and a finance section chief, and primary and alternate. So my plan is to work between the county and the city, and hopefully primary we'll have as county and alternate as city, and it is a pilot program, and actually the pilot program might come into play today because our region, actually Region 6 of Office of Emergency Manager ranges from Yankton County all the way to the south, and we're the northern anchor of it. It goes through Davison County, Bonholm, a horseshoe type shape. So if they get overwhelmed with a project, then they will call for assistance, and if someone's available to move in. And not the whole EOC team, what they would literally do is, such as that list showed, if they need someone in planning, they would request throughout the 10 county regions who can send a planning section chief down to assist us. We don't expect that to happen in today's storm, obviously, but you never know. They're going to get more snow south than we are up here. And in other storms, we might get more snow up here than they get down south. So that's why it's a pilot region. If you haven't had the incident command system training, I have started with the ICS 100 and 700 for the city-county building, the employees of this building. And of course, the commissioners are invited if they'd like to come to it. Some commissioners have already had the training, and some have not. And
What time is that?
starts at 8:15. Scheduled to go to noon, but I don't think it'll last until noon. And it's every Wednesday in the month of November. I start tomorrow morning at 8:15. So if you're available right now, I got plenty of time slots in all my classes, and you're welcome to swing by.
Bob, for
Yes,
those,
sir.
I don't know, Don, you think I see it. Am I the only one, or? did you
You're the
look-
only one I got the certificate on. I haven't asked for Commissioner Larson's certificates yet,
I know they're-
but I will. We should have Commissioner Larson's certificates in the files also.
Because I think I don't know, is that good for
Yeah, it's good forever.
Forever? Okay, so I've got both the 100 and the 700, so I think,
And what they do is they recommend the elected leadership of a county to at least be aware of what the incident command, they don't expect you guys to be plugged into the EOC in any stretch of the imagination, although we have had commissioners in the EOC working with us to see what it's like in an EOC. But they feel as elected officials, you at least need to know, if I tell you we got an incident commander such as the Volga fire chief, and you might question, well, why are you working for the Volga fire chief? Well, it all falls in the incident command system. If he's the incident commander, then the EOC technically falls under him, and that's where you get the training at for that type of scenario.
so this training you're having is the same thing that I,
By all means.
107, so
It might have been updated a little. You took it in 2004. It might have been updated just a little bit, but not enough to change anything.
Thanks.
And the comprehensive plan update, I did put some good information in your folder on exactly what we've done on the comprehensive plan. We ran an insert of a large postcard size insert, and we inserted it in 2,500 town and country shoppers that was geared for the townships. If you picked up a town and country shopper in the city of Brookings, you didn't get the insert. If you got it in the mail, so you got one in the mail? Good.
Yep.
Very
I
good.
live in the country.
Yep. The commissioners in the country probably got a copy of it in the newspaper, but the ones in town did not, and that's the reason why. We tried to go for the bigger bang for the buck with our money. And there is an online survey up and running. You can access it through the county website. And we got the milestones written down for you. I won't recap all that, but the main thing is, starting tomorrow, the 7th, in Volga, is our first meeting. And I'd encourage, if that's your area where you live, by all means, you're more than welcome to come out and see what's going on. It's called Munch, Mingle, and something or another, and Ms. Thoreau took my recommendation of, if you don't feed them, they're not going to come, so it sounds like she's going to feed them, and hopefully we get large turnouts. And of course, it's in White on November 7th, Volga November 7th, White November 14th, Elkton November 19th, and the city of Brookings next door here would be November 21st. And I won't read everything else to you, but we've got a South Dakota State University sociology graduate class working with us, and to help us compile some of the information and actually discuss it. And it's going to be quite elaborate, a little different than a normal Brookings County planning meeting, if you've ever been to one of them. So, any questions?
Bob,
Yes,
did
sir.
you follow up on that, what I was asking you about the other day, filling that survey out where I filled it out?
She said if you did not get a thank you, at the end of everything, all the buttons you pushed, if you did not get a thing saying thank you from Brookings County Development Office, you probably need to do it again.
But you know what I'm talking about, when you open the attachment, it has a survey and you fill it out, and you go all the way through, it takes you about 15, 20 minutes, you hit the button and then it takes you to the survey.
Did you get a thank you at the end of it?
No.
Then
It
she
took me
said
to the
it,
survey.
then she said it probably didn't get counted, was the answer.
Uh-oh.
We do thank you for filling
Well,
out the practice. We
This-
consider that a
This can't
practice
be like
one.
Obamacare.
That's what I was
I
gonna
mean,
say.
But my question is, how many people, if that's what it does, how many people filled it out that thought they filled it out and actually didn't?
Well, the email that you got was only sent to 5 people.
Okay, that was
Which is
just,
5 commissioners, correct. Everyone else is being sent to the web.
did you guys know what I'm talking about? That survey?
I did mine way early. Yeah.
Did you go, did you go to the website?
But
or
Dennis, the difference is you guys got the document plus the link to the survey, and
Right.
everybody else was just getting the link.
I wasn't smart enough to go to the link from the survey, I went right to the document.
That's what the problem is, I bet.
Well, yeah, absolutely, but I thought, Bob thought maybe because it was there, it maybe transferred over, but I'm finding out it didn't, so,
Unless you got a thank you.
okay,
you
I'll
can
go, I'll
transfer.
do it again. Because we still have time, right?
By all means.
Okay.
Oh.
And just for the record, the county development office has nothing to do with Obamacare.
Good.
Thank you.
Didn't even get a fired programmer?
Oh, all right, thank you. How close are we here? Well, it's 9:29, that's close enough for me. We're going to go to our presentation on the South Dakota Banking Association's Taxation and Equality Campaign. Kevin, if you'll please state your name, even though we all know you.
Sure. I am Kevin Tetzlaff. Most of you probably know me as president of First Bank and Trust here in town, but actually this morning I'm here as a representative, as chairman of the South Dakota Bankers Association. And I do thank you for allowing me a few minutes on your agenda this morning. I know you've got a lot of things to cover. And I would like to walk through a few slides to give you some perspective on an issue that's long been an issue for bankers, but with the federal deficits they are in Washington and the fiscal tightness that all budgets have, especially in the public sector these days, I think it's an issue that needs to make sure that people are aware of. So if you'll bear with me here, I'd like to walk through a little formal slide presentation for a few minutes. Obviously, interject questions as we go if you'd like, but otherwise we can take questions at the end, however you would like to do that. So again, thank you for allowing me to address the Brookings County Commission this morning. This year I have the privilege of serving as chairman of the South Dakota Bankers Association. In June, the SDBA board decided that the timing was right for a full court press to educate the general public about taxation exemptions enjoyed by the credit unions and farm credit systems, and to provide some perspective on the dollars involved. And more importantly, the effect that this has on your constituents here in Brookings County. I would like to spend a couple minutes walking through a few slides to understand the history and how we've gotten to where we are today. And I'm sorry, Stephanie, am I supposed to? The mouse? Okay. Let's do it this way. As I assume you're all aware, banks pay federal income tax, state sales tax, and local sales tax. And while South Dakota does not have a corporate income tax, banks also pay a 6% bank franchise tax. As a matter of federal law dating back to the 1930s, however, credit unions do not pay federal income tax, South Dakota bank franchise tax, or state and local sales tax. Farm credit system lenders only pay federal income tax and state bank franchise tax on income on loans which are not secured by real estate, which typically ends up representing about 1 to 5% of income that they pay tax on. You may be surprised that I'm not here to tell you that banks pay too much in tax, rather to suggest that all financial institutions should support their communities they serve and pay tax at the federal, state, and local levels. Like providers of financial services should be taxed equally. Credit unions were initially created in the 1930s and were given specifically a tax exemption to ensure people of modest means had access to basic financial services. However, today's credit unions, especially the largest, fastest growing ones, don't want people to understand how they have changed their focus of their business model. Studies have shown that credit unions generally no longer focus on servicing closely knit groups of people of modest means. On the slide above, you can see a 2006 study by the Governmental Accountability Office showing that banks provide services to a higher percentage of customers with low to moderate income than credit unions, 40 to 31%. And credit unions serve a higher percentage of upper income customers than banks, 49 to 41%. And I think it should also be noted here again that this is not a banker survey. Obviously, always those get tainted potentially. This is truly a Governmental Accountability Office study that was completed back in '06. In the case of the Farm Credit System, which was established in 1916, their own facts don't support their mission of focusing on young, small, and beginning egg producers. According to their own latest annual report, 80 to 90% of what this direct lending arm of the federal government does is make taxpayer-subsidized loans to older, well-established, larger farmers and ranchers. Here's another interesting fact. As of July 31st, 2013, the Federal Farm Service Agency, which is a lot of people reference as the old FMHA, showed that there were 1,714 active FSA guaranteed loans in South Dakota. These are loans made to some of agricultural's most at-risk borrowers. Banks underwrote 99% of those loans. A few years ago, Farm Credit Services of America, the Omaha division which serves South Dakota, financed this luxurious 6,500 square foot home that you see on the screen with a 2,100 square foot guest home and state-of-the-art equestrian facility in the Black Hills. And who was this loan made to? A Hollywood producer. Does this sound like something that a tax-favored, government-sponsored ag lender should be financing? So what you see today in most communities is two financial institutions providing like services across the street from each other. They offer the same basket of products and services to anyone who wants to open up an account. One institution pays federal tax, state bank franchise tax, and local sales tax, while the other pays nothing or very, very little. Our contention is that when a mission of a tax-exempt organization changes, then the tax exemption should also be right for change. So why is this important to you? South Dakota Bank franchise tax is assessed on entities providing financial services in South Dakota. However, not only did Congress decide to exempt preferential tax treatment at the federal level, it also elected to preempt the rights of states to apply state or local taxes to them as well. The bank franchise tax, which is paid at a rate of 6% by South Dakota's traditional community banks and credit card banks, totaled nearly $500 million between 2004 and 2013, $489 million to be exact. The state treasury, the red portion on the graph, is what amounts to $315 million. Most of these dollars came from banks solely in the credit card business because 95% of the tax paid by those credit card banks stay in the state treasury. The other 5% is returned to local government. Local governments, counties, cities, towns, school districts, townships, and rural fire districts receive bank franchise tax totaling $174 million in that same time frame. Over 90% of that tax came from traditional community banks like mine. That is because 73 1/3% of taxes paid by community banks and commercial banks benefit local government programs, while the remaining 26 2/3 stay at the state treasury to fund state programs. People opposed to repealing these outdated exemptions might have you believe this is all about banks complaining about their competition. I believe the issue is much larger than that. Failure to repeal these tax exemptions means two things will happen. One, taxpayers like you and I get to pay more, and two, funding for state and local government programs will get shortchanged. Every dollar of income shifted from a tax-paying financial institution to a credit union or farm credit means lost revenue at the federal, state, and local levels. As nearly 3/4 of the taxes paid by community banks are returned to the county treasurer's office, proportionate to a bank's footings in that county, we have a unique opportunity to drive the effects of this taxation equality very close to home. Once the local treasurer receives the county's share of the bank franchise tax, these monies are divvied out amongst various units of local governments based on laws and formulas dating back to the 1970s. On this graph, you can see an 8-year history of the total amount of bank franchise tax received by Brookings County from the State Department of Revenue. Over the last 8 years, $3.9 million has been returned back to Brookings County, averaging $485,900 per year. You can see how the dollars are then broken out on the graph above. About 69% of those dollars are divvied out to K-12 school districts within Brookings County. Now again, just for clarity, that is not just Brookings School District, that would be all the school districts within our county. So you can see $337,000 per year have been brought back to local K-12 schools. I believe the 5 or 8 year average for the Brookings School District itself is a little over $200,000 per year that we pay. Municipalities in total receive 16%, about $75,000 on average. Brookings County, 12%, about $59,600 is what has been on average for the last 8 years. Townships receive 3% at $13,400. I think it's also relevant and important to note that South Dakota community banks support their communities in many ways beyond just safekeeping their customers' money, making loans to individuals and small businesses, and paying taxes. We, like many banks, invest back into our communities. I would ask you to take a look around town. Which organizations support philanthropic, charitable, and civic causes? Is it your local bank, your credit unions, or the Farm Credit Services? So just how many tax dollars are being missed in South Dakota based on these outdated exemptions? Well, at the federal level, the combined effect is estimated to be north of $3 billion, but that's a big black hole, and sometimes people lose sight of how big that number is, and we all should be concerned on that from a federal taxpayer. But the net income of South Dakota's 44 credit unions had total assets of $2.6 billion, and they earned $21 million last year. With a 6% bank franchise tax, that equates to $1 million. That doesn't, however, account for the lost revenue from the non-payment of state and local sales tax, obviously an important component that you folks deal with. Because agricultural is such a significant part of the South Dakota economy, the estimated loss of franchise tax to the South Dakota Treasury from the Farm Credit System exemption is significantly larger. Even though the Farm Credit pays some tax on income from non-real estate secured loans, rolled together, the effective federal state Farm Credit Services rate was about 1% last year. We estimate the full assessment of South Dakota Bank franchise tax based on loan-based allocation from the Farm Credit Services income would yield around $4 million in new revenue. The primary beneficiary of this combined $5 million in new revenue under current law would be the counties, cities, townships, and schools, and other local government units, gaining around $3.7 million. That 3.7, to put that in perspective, the average over the last 5 to 7 years has been about $15 million. So adding another 3.7 million, we think is significant to local governments. The concern, however, is that these are today's numbers. The credit unions and Farm Credit Services, however, are leveraging their preferred tax treatment to grow over the last 5 years at a rate of 3 to 5 times more than commercial and community banks. Banks, if you take out all the merger and acquisitions that are happening at the national level, have grown about 10% over the last 5 years. Credit unions nationally have grown 35%. If we look at the South Dakota data, the credit unions in South Dakota over the last 5 years have grown over 45%. Farm Credit Services, again comparing to banks which grew 10% over that time period, nationally grew 32%. Farm Credit Services of America, which is the Omaha division, which covers South Dakota, grew by 51% in the last 5 years. The longer this federal law stays the same, the larger the tax subsidy will get as more business flows away from tax-paying community banks. I'm here to ask for your help. I believe that when missions of tax-exempt organizations change, then the tax exemption should be right for change as well. Leaders of the Congressional Tax Writing Committee, including the Senate Finance Committee, where Senator John Thune is a member, have initiated a bipartisan effort to reform the U.S. tax code, making it a simpler, more efficient, and fairer means. The idea of a blank slate approach is being considered, replacing current policies that benefit special interest groups with one that would benefit all taxpayers. If we are going to get Congress to take the brave step forward to remove these outdated exemptions from the tax code, we need to broaden the awareness and concern about the outdated inequities in tax code well beyond bankers. I am here to ask for your support in this taxation equality campaign. Personally, as a federal taxpayer, I hope you are concerned about the inequalities in the lost revenue, especially at a time when we have massive federal deficits. But even more so, I would hope you are concerned about this issue as an elected official of Brookings County, representing all the stakeholders of the county who are being shortchanged from a funding perspective or being asked to pay more because others are paying little or none. I'm asking for your support in changing these archaic tax exemptions. If you agree with my presentation and you feel it would be appropriate, I would appreciate a resolution of support from the Brookings County Commissioners, supporting equal taxation amongst financial providers, so we can help show that there's public support to address this long-ending issue. Whether you feel this is appropriate or not, if you agree with the facts presented this morning, I would ask that you collectively or individually contact Senator Thune, Senator Johnson, and Representative Noem and ask them to support our campaign in repealing the credit union and farm credit tax exemptions. I would further ask you to contact our local congressional delegations. Ask them to support a resolution next year at the South Dakota State Legislature telling Congress that now is the time to act. This exercise is all about showing our elected members of Congress that it's okay politically to repeal these illogical relics in the federal tax code. In the game of politics in Washington, it's all about who has the votes. The only way to get those votes is to provide political cover at a high enough level to offset the pressure from those who will do whatever it takes to maintain the status quo. I've got a few other slides, but I'd like to just have a dialogue more than just continuing to present facts in this endeavor. So I'll just pause if you have any comments, questions. Tom?
Yeah, what's a blank slate?
A blank, good question. blank slate approach would be where where all taxpayers pay the same, or they all pay the same rate, but if somebody wants an exemption off of that, you need to justify why your exemption benefits the greater good.
So credit unions that may be still taking care of the Irish in the Bowery or something could apply for the exemption and get back their no tax status.
Correct.
If they were meeting the original criteria or the goals of the credit union. Okay.
And this is something that, until I started to dive into this a year or two ago, I wasn't probably as equipped on as I am, or should be, but in South Dakota, there's 44 credit unions. If you look at the evolution of the credit unions from the 1930s, what you have in front of you is the largest credit union we have in South Dakota is the Black Hills Federal Credit Union, which is $1 billion in size. And just to put that in perspective, that's bigger than First Bank and Trust and Brookings and the large region and market share that we have here. They're bigger than we are from that perspective, and they continue to grow. In fact, they're in the process of setting up a new branch in Pierre. So again, they started in the Black Hills in Rapid City, and over the last 5 years, they have added additional counties to their geographical community to where now they are at the community where they can reach Pierre. So they cover the western portion of the state. On the eastern side of the state, the largest player is Dakota Land Federal Credit Union, which we have here in Brookings. Good folks from that perspective. This is not a personal issue at all. But as we look at their evolution over the last 5 years, they used to serve 3 counties. Today they serve 25. Basically, they go from the Minnesota border to Pierre, from I-90 north, almost to the North Dakota border. And so their evolution in asset size 5 years ago, they were $110 million. Today they're $220 million. And again, they're providing a needed and valued service, but as they continue to grow, as farm credit continues to grow, those tax dollars that used to be loans and fees that were generated on the tax-paying commercial banks are not going to be paid to the federal or state treasury or in the lost sales tax revenue by the credit unions or farm credit. So there's an evolution that's really happening, and the reason this is really starting to snowball, especially on the credit union side, is back in the 1930s, the evolution of credit unions to be able to offer all of the same bank and financial products and services and to grow their communities to what now is they used to be single bond credit unions where they had to serve a single unit. Now the majority of them are community credit unions, which basically means they can serve a general community. And again, we just talked about where Dakota Land Federal Credit Union's historical community used to be 1, 3, and now it's 25. Black Hills Federal Credit Union is now basically the western half of the state. An example, a very ironic example, a couple days ago, our CFO, Dave Walagowski from Fishback Financial, knows of the taxation campaign I'm on, and he kind of chuckled and walked in and dropped something on my desk. Let me just grab it here so I get the facts right. He got a solicitation from the NASA Federal Credit Union, I forget where it was, down south somewhere, to become a credit card holder for the NASA Federal Credit Union. Got a solicitation in the mail that was sent all across the country. And so when we talk about losing mission and abandoning their original service of who they're servicing, well, you have to be a member of the credit union. That would be the normal response to that. Well, I did some digging. There's about 100 different organizations that you can join for free, which then allow you to become a member of this credit union, which then allows you to have that credit card, which would mean that all the income generated off of that credit card would be tax-free. They wouldn't pay a dime on it. And this is going across the country. It's just, when we talk about getting back to your original point, Commissioner Weisseth, there's some credit unions that are still following their original mission. In South Dakota, again, we've got 44 credit unions. What you've got in front of you is a dialogue of how all those credit unions are structured. There's 4 credit unions in South Dakota that are still sticking to their original single bond purpose, and that represents 9% of the total and for $55 million in assets, because they're seeing a very close-knit group of people. They're sticking to their original mission. We have no contention with those 4 credit unions and the like across the country. The problem is, those aren't the ones that are pulling all the tax revenue and continuing to grow that snowball and get bigger and bigger and bigger. On the farm credit side of things, again, I think in general, I think people realize that they typically go after the larger, well-to-do farmers. Again, that is totally opposite of what their mission is. We showed a couple examples of the lodge out in the Black Hills. We've got many other things where they've really went outside their mission, but again, ironically, just in the last couple weeks, came across an article whereby the Farm Credit System was a major financer of Verizon Communications' purchase of Vodafone, which is a British telecommunications company. It was a $12 billion deal, and they were a $725 million loan participant in that British buyout of a telecom communication company. Where that fits into serving the small, young entrepreneur farmer, I'm not sure. And so again, we're trying not to make this personal, because the other side of that, I've had questions on, boy, you know, specifically our bank has been a long-time ag bank supporter. Why would we want to tax farmers? Well, the issue and the response to that is, if we look at, number one, Farm Credit Services is an arm of the federal government. If we look at their numbers, from a profitability standpoint, across the board, when banks look at measuring their profitability, they look at a return on assets. What was your income based on the number of assets that you manage? And across the country, it's about 1%, maybe 1.1 or 1.2 as a reference point to put it in perspective. Farm Credit Services of America, or Farm Credit Services, which covers the entire country, was 1.75. Farm Credit Services of America, which is the Omaha division, which serves South Dakota, was 2.75 last year. And so if somebody said, well, we're going to have to raise our rates on farmers, or we're going to not be able to give the dividends back, you know, that Farm Credit Services is known for, I think you need to ask them, well, if you're going to do that, how profitable should an arm of the federal government be? Because again, today they're 2 to 3 times more profitable than the average community bank. And so if they're at 2.75 today, they have plenty of dollars to still give their dividend checks back to the farmers, pay taxes, and still be over almost double the income profitability of a community bank. And so there's a lot of, and I apologize, I'm taking too much of your valuable time, but it's...
They do, but as with everything, don't you foresee that will trickle down to the consumer?
But should it? Should that be our concern?
Well, it shouldn't. I agree, it shouldn't, but...
Because if they decide to raise their interest rates because, you know, they become taxed, then we really need to ask, do we want to continue to give them a tax exemption to compete against tax-paying banks? Because if they pass that along, how profitable should they be? Because today, their growth model is they're growing 3 to 5 times faster than banks are. And if we leave them as they are, they're going to continue to take more and more business away, to the point where, especially in rural South Dakota, I'm not saying in Brookings or in the metropolitan Sioux Falls water towns, but you look out in West River, I'm concerned about our small community banks that are serving those local communities. What do you see in those communities? You see maybe a post office, but it's not a given anymore, a cafe, probably a bar, maybe 2, and you see a local bank. The growth of those local banks out in western South Dakota and really across rural America, they would love to be at 10% over the last 5 years. They're going the other way. And the reason is what do they have to offer? They offer farm loans. Farm credit is driving into their communities. They don't have any stakeholder in those communities. They drive into the community, pull the real estate deals out, pull the operating loans out, and drive back to one of their 9 regional centers in South Dakota, and they don't invest anything back into that local community. So when a young entrepreneur wants to start up a business in that community and there's no longer a local bank there because there's no volume to make it a viable entity, who's going to be there to support that local business or that local entrepreneur? And so this is a big issue, especially in rural America, where, you know, farm credit is noted a lot of time of being the backbone of rural America. I think they really need to rethink that about what they're doing to rural America, because they have no financial stakehold in these small communities, which I think we value throughout the Midwest.
Okay, any other questions?
Kevin, I wanted to back up to about your first slide, and you said that you used it, and maybe I missed it, but something they'll pay up to like from a 1 to 5%
Yep.
tax. You know,
Yep.
there you are.
Yep.
Can you tell me where that 1 to 5% would come from?
Yep, the 1 to 5%, Commissioner Larson, comes from the fact that the exemption that was given to farm credit back in the 1916 or 1919 was that all loans that are tied to real estate are exempt from any taxation. Farm credit does offer some operating loans. So there are some loans that they make, very few, that are not tied to any type of real estate security. So they pay the conventional federal tax rate and bank franchise tax rate on those level of earnings in that bucket. But that bucket actually becomes pretty small because predominantly what they are is they're real estate lenders. They do provide operating lines, but if that operating line happens to be secured with a real estate mortgage, which a lot of them are, that throws it into the exemption bucket. So that's why of their total portfolio of income, they need to break out what portions are taxable or not. And the 1 to 5%, the reason there's a range there is the farm credit services of across the country, I'll say that, farm credit services in total, if we look at their financial report, they allocate about 5% for taxes. But then if we look at Farm Credit Services of America, which is a subdivision of that, but which is who we really compete with in South Dakota, they're based out of Omaha, we look at their financials, they allocated 1% of their income towards that.
Okay, good, thanks. So if I had an operating loan and I had a real estate loan, but as security, that exempts my operating loan. My final question or clarification, I guess, is I've looked at before this issue came up, for a long period of time, I've looked at the bank franchise tax and compared it to other taxes that are paid by business, all of us in business. The bank franchise tax, albeit we don't have an income tax in South Dakota, it is kind of tied to a bank's income, is that correct?
It is directly tied to a bank's income, correct.
So in a sense, it's an income tax.
Yeah, and again, banks have never really touted or complained about that. We've been paying this tax since the early 30s. It's changed in its percentages and how it's calculated, but in general, again, South Dakota doesn't have a corporate income tax, but in reality, we have a corporate income tax on banks, which is known as the bank franchise tax. And really, the bank franchise tax, as everybody knows it, it is not saying that we're just going to tax banks. It's saying that income generated on providing products and services related to financial services is taxed. And so that's where, again, even at the state level code, credit unions and farm credit would fall into that very easily. Farm credit does, they've already paid some portion of their bucket on taxes, but the federal law that was initiated back in 1930s preempts states from taxing those two entities, even though we have a corporate income tax.
So I would assume then, since the 1930s, you have considered the potential tax consequences as an operating expense, and it's built into the cost of the services you provide.
Definitely.
Okay.
Just like every other business.
Yep. Thank you.
I guess the question I have is a federal law, and I guess the support you're asking for, looking for, is locally and federally, it has to be changed federally to be changed locally, because there's a state law.
Correct.
That talks about the bank franchise tax.
Yep. This is a federal law that has to change before it will change at the state level and before we can start collecting sales tax at the local level. But the issue and the concern is we've had this discussion with our federal delegation, congressional delegation for years. And to be honest with you, why we're raising this issue right now is because of the federal deficits at the national level, and because there's some true bipartisan support that if we're going to fix what's going on in Washington, we've got to try to get to a fiscal responsibility of bringing more revenue to the table or cutting expenses. And our connotation is before we ask others to pay more or others to get less services, that those that aren't paying any tax or those that are paying very, very little should pay like the rest of us.
Yeah. And I understand, you know, what's happening because of back in the days, 20, 30 years ago, credit unions were just small little credit unions that assisted maybe a company or a small entity with small loans, things like that, but now they've developed into the debit card, credit card operation. I had somebody from out West River the other day I was with, and they had a Black Hills debit card that was actually a credit union card, you know, that was, you know, again, they're not using the banks, and which that cuts into the bank franchise for everybody, not necessarily what is happening in Brookings County, but I see where you're.
And what's happened on the community or on the credit union side is when they really went to a community credit union charter, which was in the late 80s when they got that authority, is when they could expand their geographical footprint. That's when their growth really came in. But getting back to, you know, what I'm really asking for, the change has to happen in Washington. And the change, if it's going to change, is probably going to be through some type of tax reform, which this blank slate approach fits directly into everybody needing to justify why their tax exemption is still valid. And so we're pushing really hard. We've met with Senator Thune on this specific issue because he serves on that committee, and we've expressed our position on this. And obviously, he's a politician, and he listened very well. But he also said something that was different than many of our other prior years' visits, was that he understood that to fix this issue, we've got to look at all solutions, and that he is a full supporter of the blank slate approach, meaning everybody's got to justify that. But the one thing that he stated, which really started this whole campaign that we're working not just in South Dakota on, but across the country, of raising this awareness is, you know, you've got to get more support than just bankers, because it looks like bankers are just complaining about competition. And I think we've got a story to tell that there's a lot of lost revenue at the state, local, and at the federal level that's affecting all of us. But we need to get the story out, and people need to understand that. Otherwise, again, it's, well, because the credit unions and the Farm Credit have a strong lobbying group. And until we can counter that with logic of, okay, forget the rhetoric, what do your numbers say? And what is your mission of why the tax exemption was given? Because the other part of that we'll hear often is, well, we're a cooperative. We give back to our members in cheaper fees and lower interest rates by having this tax exemption. Well, that might be true. But if all banks did that and helped all of our customers that way, think what that would do to the federal deficits and the local. If we all became tax-free, that would be better for the customers, because we could all take that margin out and give it back. But then who's going to build the infrastructures of our community? And so, anyway, I'm sorry, I get on a soapbox when I get started on this. So,
I got confused with the slide a little bit. You might want to add 1 to 5% of their business is taxable. I assume that was their tax rate because you were talking about.
Well, that is their tax rate. I'm sorry if I misspoke there. Basically, what the 1 to 5% is, Farm Credit Services, their total bottom line income is reported of X, and I can.
Yeah, I just,
and I can
but
tell you
I
that
thought you
number,
said 1 to
then-
5% of their business was non-real estate. That was the only part that was taxable,
Farm
rather than
Credit,
the rate.
Farm Credit made $4.3 billion last year, across the country, and they paid taxes of $222 million, which equates to 5%. So that's where I'm taking all of their income.
Okay.
And the amount of tax that they actually paid, which is 5%. And then the 1% is the net income from this region out of Omaha. They made $480 million, and they paid $4.6 million, which is 1%.
Well, regardless, I guess I'm on a board of a mutual insurance company. There is no bank insurance tax in South Dakota, but we pay federal income tax, and we do all the things that credit unions do. And I went to a liberal arts Catholic college, and we were supposed to look out for the poor, and we studied credit unions and their value. But I have the philosophy, if you act and walk and talk like a duck, you're a duck. And they're no longer, they're a duck, they're a bank. And if they meet the original criteria. So I support your resolution.
Thank you, Tom.
Kevin, one final, I guess maybe question/comment, and that would be for local governments or for government in general, you know, counties, school districts, whatever. This has to be changed at the federal level.
Correct.
And at the federal level, if they were to enact your equality, but could they also dictate that the revenues cannot exceed the current levels because nobody wants to raise taxes, and so thus farm credit's going to pay a little tax and yours is going to be reduced, and so now we got everybody paying the same rate, but those of us beneficiaries, the states, the counties, et cetera, really won't see any change? Is that a, could that be dictated at the federal level in the legislation that they come out with?
Yep.
I mean, it would end up being good for you, but it didn't help me. I mean,
Yep.
you see what I'm saying?
Yep, I see what you're saying. I really doubt, I mean, I can't predict what they're gonna do in the federal government, obviously. But I would doubt that they're going to actually reduce, I mean, in reality, we don't have enough revenue at the table today. We spend, you know, in big picture, we spend a lot more than we bring in. And so I really think what's gonna happen, Commissioner Larson, is that this blank slate approach is there's gotta be a baseline tax on everybody. But what's gotta happen is the whole bar's gotta move up. How that bar moves up is whether these tax-paying banks or tax-paying citizens in general, you know, the expense ledgers here, we've gotta get to here. Does that come all on this side, or is there some, I'll use the word freeloaders, that aren't paying anything that help move the bar up as well? Would be how I would proceed.
I guess revenue neutral is the term I should have used, that they or the state would come up with a revenue neutral, so they can say, well, we didn't really raise taxes. We just, you got a little reduction, they got a little increase.
I think the clarification, because we've had that issue in other states through the national association that I'm part of through the bankers, is that we've had that same question. Well, there's a resolution out there that we're not going to raise taxes on anybody. Well, we're not raising taxes. We're basically making those that should be paying taxes today that aren't paying. So,
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
I guess one other question for you. Is this a national trend, that the credit unions are growing nationally, or is it more in the rural areas or in South Dakota? Are we seeing it more, do you know?
We're seeing it more in South Dakota. Again, don't quote me on these numbers, it's in my slides, but in the farm credit side of things, in our region, we grew 51%, and I think nationally it was like 40 or 45% compared to 10%, and the credit unions were like 34 or 35% on a national scale versus 10%. So we're seeing the growth across the country, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. So we probably need to put the idea of a resolution on for an action item on our next meeting.
Excuse me?
We probably need to put the idea of a resolution as an action item for
Yep.
our next meeting.
I can draft something up for you.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Would you like me to draft something, or is that something that you can? Perfect, thank you.
Okay, moving on, Finance Office report.
I don't have anything today.
Okay. And we do have an automatic supplement. Could I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Motion by Falcon, second by Krogman. Any discussion?
Does anybody have questions on this? This is an insurance reimbursement check, so you will potentially see a contingency request also in a month or two to cover the deductible coming out of the department's budget line.
Okay, if there are no questions, call the roll, please.
Krogman?
Aye.
Falcon? Larson? Wyseth?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Regular business. Action on Agreement 1360, an application made by Northern Sky Dairy to occupy 201st Street. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Wyseth, second by Krogman. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Falcon? Larson? Wyseth?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Action on Agreement 13-61, an agreement for voluntary right-of-way donation between Brookings County and David Moriarty. Motion, please. Motion by Larson, second by Falcon. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Larson? Wyseth?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Falcon? Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Action on Agreement 13-62, an agreement for voluntary right-of-way donation between Brookings County and Ruth Vosted. Can I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Wyseth, second by Krogman. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Wyseth?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Falcon? Larson? Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Action on Agreement 13-63, an application made by Sioux Valley Energy to occupy the right-of-way on 207th Street. Motion, please. Motion by Falcon, second by Larson. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Krogman?
Aye.
Falcon? Larson? Wyseth?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Action on Resolution 13-67, a resolution authorizing the purchase of one additional tandem axle truck based upon the price established through the Brookings County, South Dakota bid process. Could I have a motion, please? Motion by Larson, second by Krogman. Discussion? Was there anything you wanted to say on it? We discussed this last meeting and decided this was okay.
You're just purchasing a second truck off the same
Same
bid for the
bid.
original truck. You were gonna buy one, and you're gonna buy two.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Falcon?
Aye.
Larson? Wyseth?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Action on Agreement 13-64, a delinquent tax agreement in the amount of $2,413.92. Could I have a motion, please?
For discussion? It says discussion, not action.
No, it says action.
Oh. Huh?
It's
Well, I
action.
do have an old one.
It's action.
Okay.
Could I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Falcon, second by Krogman. I get in enough trouble all by myself. I don't need help. Discussion. Vicki, was there anything you wanted to say on this?
This just has the new wording that Abby and I worked on, so that would be the only difference on this. It's just a basic agreement.
And that new wording being that they keep the current taxes.
The current taxes, yes.
Okay.
We're in this document, did that wording?
It's in 2 and 3 there, is where the wording has been changed. On 2, it says to keep all taxes, subsequent taxes
Yeah.
current.
Okay.
Thank you.
Call the roll, please.
Larson? Wyseth?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Falcon?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next one is discussion on the road maintenance agreement between Brookings County and Novita. And I know that there were some questions that were presented to us in our packet. And Abby, maybe you would like to lead that discussion.
Yeah, at the last meeting, the commission directed me to prepare the road use agreement between Novita and the county. And in meeting with Mr. Burke and Mr. Hill and having some conversations with Novita, it became very apparent to me that I don't believe all the questions have been clarified, nor is everyone on the same page in terms of the information that I think needs to be included in a road use agreement that the commission would ultimately sign off on. So the questions that I provided, I guess, are things that I do believe have easy answers to, but things that I guess have not been clarified at this point, or that the parties have different answers to. And I defer to you all as to how you want this drafted, what the answers to these questions are. You know, if in fact you think this road use agreement needs to be put in place prior to us taking over the road. So I guess I offered these questions as a continuation of this discussion. I apologize for not having the agreement ready to go today, but I think these issues do need to get clarified before we can finalize a legally binding document. So I guess I would defer to you and to Novita as to how you want to proceed, and then I'm happy to go forward as you wish.
And I think we need to look at this carefully, because these types of things can come back to bite us, and I think we need to do this right. So I guess maybe, should we just start with number 1 and get a general consensus as to how?
Sure, and I can just go through each of these and I guess let you guys kind of take it from there on each of them. And if it's something that you believe is not necessary to be resolved today or you don't want included, just advise me of is that much. But first and foremost, I guess, the time frame of the construction of the new road, and Dick and I conversing on this, and I hope I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. This is where I compiled all my information from everyone. We were thinking that most likely the road would be constructed from the county once the facility had been fully constructed by Novita, but perhaps that's not the case. Was it your all understanding that we would commence the road as soon as the construction period opened up, or is that something that we were waiting until the facility is fully constructed? If the road gets torn up, then we build the road once kind of that construction traffic is completed.
Yeah, I guess I would ask that maybe it's going to be a three-way conversation here probably, and I need to ask the questions of.
You can pull up a chair if you want to come up, Rick.
I need to ask the questions of what is your construction, Novita's construction time frame? Can the road get put in before, or, I mean, you can't tear up the road and then all of a sudden you have to haul equipment in there and you can't get there because the road's tore up, so we got to work together on it. So I guess, what is your time frame?
My name is Don Andrus. I'm the CEO of Novita. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you again today about this. In terms of timing, we think the right way to do this is we're going to have a fair amount of dirt work on our site to do just to get ready. We'll do all the phase 1 work, and including creating gravel roads and lay down areas and such. While that's occurring, it seems logical that the same would be going on with the road, so we can get the road dirt work done, if you will, and the base put down. Then as we bring equipment in, there'll be a lot of heavy equipment that'll be brought in. That road will get packed, which is important that we do get some use of that road to really get it in shape before the top would be put on it. So we think that would make logical sense. We'll have scrapers and things that we'll need to get there, but we can go, there's a couple of ways we can get into the property if we need to.
So what is your dirt work time frame, and what are you looking at? 6 weeks,
Sure.
8 weeks, starting when, ending?
Sure.
What's your time frame?
Our ideal case is as soon as the frost is out, as soon as we can get in there next spring, we'd get started. Now, we still are finalizing our financing work, so assuming that all goes well, as soon as snow is melted and the ground is thawed out and dry, we would get in there and get to work.
And how long will that take you?
I think we're probably in the range of about 6 weeks, something like that.
So just so that I'm on the same page as you feel that you can do your dirt work at the same time that we're doing our base on the road?
Yes.
How do you feel about that, Dick?
I guess it's going to take some coordination. I don't know. I guess I would prefer they be separate. I think they can go on at the same time if it's timed properly. I guess, what are you thinking, Don, that the same contractor would do it, or I don't understand why the...
No, it doesn't need to be obviously the same contractor, but the timing is important because we want to get the base of the road ready at the same time we're getting our dirt work done. And so then once your gravel is down, then we could use the road to haul the equipment in and use it. We're thinking potentially up until about August time frame, something like that it'd be ready then for you to bring and put the top on it. Mm-hmm. But we're gonna, we run into this issue any way we look at this because we're gonna have truck traffic increasing, as time goes on. We'll bring a lot of equipment in. There'll be a little bit of a slow area this fall when we're working on site, the equipment, so there all the electrical and piping and such, there'll be road traffic just for workers to get in there, but not a lot of big trucks and big vehicles that would have to work around with the road. But no matter how we look at this, we're going to have to coordinate transportation on that road in some fashion. It gets more complicated, I think more difficult as we get closer to startup. But again, I think we also thought about the timing in terms of making sure that road gets packed, and we just thought it made some sense to actually do those in tandem versus waiting until the fall and then start doing the work of the road. We could make that work as well. We just thought it'd maybe make more sense from a road perspective to have those trucks roll over that road once the top is on, or once the gravel base is down.
Being unfamiliar with the bid process, and I certainly understand, Don, you don't want to go through all this expense, build this plant, and then have trucks waiting, stacking up, waiting for a road to get built. So, but when you bid this, can you bid a stop and go thing? They come out, do the door work, put some gravel on, and then, then when you're done with that, come back later and finish it. Is that?
It wouldn't be an ideal situation. You're going to pay mobilization
Twice.
almost every time they show up. But I think the big thing would be to, as far as a coordination standpoint, obviously you don't want to be one entity working against the other, getting in each other's way, so to speak. But from a coordination standpoint, if there were phases, like he said, if there was a lull in construction or this and that, might permit the next part of the road to go in. But as far as getting competitive bids, the less interference you can provide for those people, the more competitive bid you're going to have.
They'll lead us up with something like that.
How many weeks do you think it will take for them to do if they start day one, how many days does it take until they're finished with the road top on it?
Yeah, you're only looking at 1.5 miles, so I would say, depending upon what degree of reconstruction is going to be necessary from the bottom up, I would think you could easily do it from bid letting to completion in 2 months at the very most. It depends upon how available your contractors are, of course. But I'd say in a best case scenario, if you had a local contractor that was available and could start in a week's notice to 2 weeks' notice, you wouldn't be looking at a very long time because your materials are very close proximity to the project, which will make a big difference. If you go, let's say you get a bid from some contractor in Wisconsin or Minnesota, and they're going to mobilize and come, then you're looking at, they're going to want to make sure that they can get it from start to finish, so you may not get started in a timely manner.
Sure. Well, again, and we could make that work as well. Again, we were just thinking about the benefits of actually driving in that road before the top is put on. But if there's no concern from that perspective, we could be ready to go, August 1 timeframe, and then basically we'd have all our equipment on site, and we still have to find a way to get construction workers in and out, but we can do that. There's maybe that'll be from the west side or something, but we'll find a way to get people in and out. But I think we could do that as well.
Yeah, I don't think, and that would have an effect on the total bid too, but if you have it partially open where people are using it, never denying access and stuff like that, it's doable. It's just depends upon what they'll consider as a, justification for it or what compensation they'll want for that inconvenience. But
Sure. Well, again, we were thinking about it just for the benefit of the road. If that is not needed, or if it increased costs, then it may not make any sense. And August 1, again, I think would be about the time frame when we'd have all equipment in, and not all, but most equipment would be on site then, and they could take over the road.
I would say you'd want to be shooting for everything to be done then by, obviously, 1st of October, or in that neighborhood.
Yep.
Don, let's say we agree to that we, you know, we find that time that you're done hauling in the big equipment and the workers are coming. Is there a chance that, so then we can get a crew in there and build this road in a timely manner? Is there a chance you can drive across Valero in a pickup truck and end up across the fence and end up at your place, so the workers actually stayed away from the road so they could really go at it?
Well, we wouldn't be able to cross the Valero site. They've got a rail yard out there, and there's just there's no road there today. But again, we got the gravel roads that we can go from come from other directions. We could, you know, again, I would imagine they wouldn't close the entire segment down. There'd be some way to get from either the east or the west. At some point, you have people living along there as well that will need some access to it.
Well, I guess I look at this as, you know, working together to get, so we're not in each other's way, and certainly see where, I can't believe we can't go out and write a bid or write specs that we want the same as what they're talking, phase one of our road done, when they're doing phase one of their dirt work, that you get the road and you, I mean, mobilization is one thing, but you don't use the same equipment to asphalt or pave that you do to haul dirt and blade and grade. I mean, the mobilization can't be that difficult, and I would think a contractor that if you said, okay, by April 1st we want you on site and we want to have the surface built and widened and all the preparation for this road done by May 15th, and then we want you to come back and pave or whatever. We haven't made a decision that I'm aware of what exactly the road surface is going to be, but and then come back and do that final paving prior to the plant opening. I can't believe we can't try to. I mean, we're not mobilizing for the same project. We're doing it.
Right. The
See what I'm
only
saying?
the only real good example I can give you of what you'd need for this coordination is we had a federal highway project out in Lawrence County that was an enormous project, probably $13 million. It wasn't until we had the pre-construction meeting with federal engineers and whatever that the city of Spearfish came to the table and said they had allowed for a water line and sanitary sewer extension plus development into these adjacent lands. The project went from going to be done in about 6 weeks to 8 weeks to about a year-and-a-half project because constantly one contractor was complaining that the other one was causing interference and making it difficult for them to handle. Now again, we were talking about more complicated cutting back slopes. We were talking building roads and a box culvert that was enormous. These are extremely night and day examples, but it's just something that can happen that wouldn't need to happen if there's some coordination or understanding ahead of time that we both know what we're trying to accomplish. We both have a means to get there. We just have to try to find a way that blends the two instead of making it difficult. And again, that's kind of apples and oranges, but it's something that can happen, Dennis, of why you want to get it above the board. And I don't think it's insurmountable by any means, but it's something that you want to be aware of that.
I don't want to be in that situation. We had it even when this building was built, you know, we had contractors on top of each other, and if one did something, the other one said, well, it was his fault because he did this, and I don't want to be in that position with Navita. I mean, I want this clean, and to me, this would just breed an environment for some problems, and I think that if they were doing this out of concern for the packing of the road, it sounds like to me, and if we don't need that from them, I think it would be better if they got their dirt work done and then we go to work on the road.
And we're fine with that. It is important, though, that we get the road done by next fall, because there's a chance that we could exceed our construction schedule and be done by the first of the year. And we would obviously want to be able to move trucks and run.
Sure.
And if the top doesn't go on until the spring, that'd be a big problem.
Don, would it just be realistic if we, for today's discussion, said, can you have all your heavy stuff moved in, and we just set a target date of, we begin our construction August 1st or something, you know? Then you can be building while we're building the road, and we're not interfering with each other. And then we can proceed with our engineering and our contracts and our bidding, you know. Just be a date specific, and if that date agrees with you, that you can have all your big heavy stuff pulled in and on site.
I think that'll work for us. We may have a long lead item, something we need to get in there. We'll just coordinate with the contractor there to get it in.
Would that work for you, Dick? I mean, we got to work together on it, but yet we do have to have some specific dates, because we're going to be going to our contractors.
Absolutely. I think that should work fine.
Okay.
Does that feel good with everybody? Abby?
So so I could clarify, the facility may be still in the construction phase, but the idea is that they'll have all the heavy equipment items moved in, and our target date is August 1 to start construction of the road.
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
With a completion, within about 60 days or so.
Of our road?
We will want to have it complete, but that'll be in our contract. I mean,
In
we'll
your
want to
contract,
do that
right.
anyway. That'll
Right,
be in our
exactly.
contracts
Yep.
once they start, they'll finish.
Yeah, sure.
And so then getting the heavy equipment out would also be, that'd be done on the finished road.
Well, okay, so there'll be cranes and such. We would, again, anticipate those would be on site by August 1. When would those come off? Probably by, most of that should be done by, December, maybe before that time frame.
Yeah, but they're gonna be legal load limit
Right.
with axles, because they have to travel on interstates and highways, so
Yeah.
they're not gonna be overweight vehicles. The real heavy stuff is what we're hauling when we have them on plan over our side.
And I don't have a problem proceeding with that August 1st date. I guess my only concern, and I think that working together of putting the base in to be able to move the heavy stuff in is, what happens if we start moving this heavy stuff in and the road falls apart in the middle of, and then we gotta go out there and fix it because we didn't have the road ready for the type of loads that I think that was the intent of my thought of, let's get the base of the road built when we haul the heavy stuff in while they're doing the dirt work. But I guess if the commission's aware that if the road falls apart and something, I guess we can fix it.
Well, that goes into the next number.
That ties directly into my next question, which is, assuming we take over the road once their funding is complete, which was my understanding.
Right.
Do we have any expectations of Novita then during that period until the new road is constructed for them to upkeep on the maintenance? Do we upkeep on all the maintenance? If there's damage above and beyond general highway maintenance, who's responsible for that? I need some direction with that issue.
Well, we put I'll call it an LOI, a letter of intent, in front of all of you, and we're okay. If you want to start the date of that 5-year, $50,000 agreement, if you want to start that at the start of construction of the road, we could do that. If you want to start it when it's completed, when we start operation, that's fine too. I guess it seems logical to us that you do it like taxes, where we pay at the end of the year. Our agreement was, first, remember, it was up to 50, and then based upon the discussion, we kind of gave on that and said, okay, if you're good with everything else, we'll give on that. We'll just make it $10,000 a year, and we'll be done. If you want to start that again at the date of start of road construction, if that's when you want the period to start, it ends 5 years later. So in the end, it's not that big of a deal. We're okay with it. But $10,000 is what we'd agreed to per year.
And it is our road. at that point, assuming everything goes as planned. And I think if we start with their 10,000 at the end of next year, of 2014, we can put that money toward our maintenance, but I think we're going to have to do the maintenance on it during construction.
So,
I think that'll be, Dick, I can see, we only got a few homeowners out there, about 2 or 3. I mean, there's not, these guys are the main users of that road, but they get out there and it's just spring, and I've seen, how those roads can go. Because the road, we have a thing about weight limit during construction, but it is specified in the road agreement. So if we agree to them to disregard our weight limit, we can end up with some huge ruts, and a little Subaru out there might not do so good. So how much do you think we'll be out there throwing dirt in there and packing it down, or gravel?
I guess if you'd go by our level of service, it wouldn't be that demanding, because there are only a couple landowners that are there. However, with the road limitations, once it's built, obviously, we're not going to require that. Prior to that, in almost any construction operation or project of any sort, whether it be something minor like tracking material out onto the road versus ruts or damage done, I guess I would feel that if it's obvious that there was a known culprit that to be addressed, they should be the one addressing it. And Don and Rick would probably say the same. If their concrete trucks were coming to their site and they were constantly driving in the same ruts, making it worse and worse and worse, and you bring it to their attention, somebody needs to take care of it, and I don't think it should be us in instances like that. Let's say the road gets a little washboardy and it's ideal conditions and routine maintenance of blade work and whatever. I think we can do that, because that's no different than we do on any other road. It's just something to where we would want to pinpoint that should there be an obvious source causing extreme stress and distress on our road, it'd be no different than anybody else, that we would expect that they make it right. And even from the aspect of maybe that it'll get worse before it gets better, we still would have to look out for the traveling public and deal with those types of things. So does that help answer the?
Well, pretty much, and I guess, Mike, that's fine. It's going to be minimal, I'm not too worried about it. It's a road that's going to be replaced. I'm not too big on the stuff that's going to be.
I would say this too. If a contractor, causes damage to the road with unattended use of that road, or before it's approved for them to go on the road, then that the county contact them and say, look, this you've damaged the road, and you need to pay for it. So we're okay with that. If it's maintenance, we think it fits in the maintenance category. But I think just no different than you would with any other county road, right? If someone damages the road, I'm assuming you go after them to pay for the damage. Something to that effect? I don't know.
We do. The only difference would be, like, for example, at the dairy up by Bruce, they needed to use a different road than what they had agreed to originally during construction, putting a lot of stress on with their continuous flow of concrete trucks. The guy building the dairy knew that they needed that material and they had to have it, and so he agreed at that point in time to cover any damages that those cement trucks would do. Again, it was doable, and we worked together. But to answer your question bluntly, Don, I don't want to. If the cement trucks are going to your site, I don't want to go after the cement trucks individually and say, hey, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. I mean, we all know what they're going for and what project they're working on. I think it's part of your responsibility to, you know, kind of grab the bull by the horns too and say, you know, you guys see what you're doing to this road.
No, and I agree with that too. Look, we care about that road maybe more than anyone. Want to make sure it's available, open for use during construction as well as afterwards. So we'll work hard to make sure those guys take care of it. We just ask up front, you know, if the road is open, we will need concrete trucks and cranes and things that will go over the road. Hopefully we'll have a fairly dry season, so none of this will really matter that much. I think the only challenge would be is if you had a really, you know, wet year and you had the road opened up to top off of it, something like that. That's where it could get to be a challenge for us, but we'll just have to look at it and make provisions and work around it. You know, we did this on the other, that was a 5-mile road between 14 and 324. Mm-hmm. We made it work and confident we can do it here. I don't think we can define all of the scenarios that will come up here.
No.
I just think it's too difficult, but I think you know, we'll get our heads together and do it right. And again, we'll agree that if the contractor or our company who causes that problem causes a problem that clearly is a fault of theirs and they operate outside of direction, then they should have to pay for the problem. I think that's fine. We don't think, though, that should be that grading and normal maintenance, just because you know what kind of trucks we're going to have on this during that construction period.
Mm-hmm. I think is what it says here. I just think the county would be responsible for the maintenance of the road during the construction. Just put that in there. If it's wet and we're starting to have a lot of problems with the road and we go out and say, look, you can't run trucks on here for a week or 10 days because we need this to firm up a little bit, and the company that's hauling for you or you choose to say, look, we're just going to do it, and then we're going to say, okay, well then you're going to help us fix the road back up again, so it's travel. I think that can be worked out, but I think the general thing is we can't proceed because it's normal use of the road, and if it gets damaged because of overloads or hauling when they shouldn't be, then we have a different issue, but it's got nothing to do with this. So I think if we can say we're responsible.
Abby, you're going to work the conditional use parts into this that you said in the top paragraph. Well, there's a couple items that address this situation. So one is the weight limitation is agreed. Then we're going to remove the weight limitation in our road agreement because that's item
Yeah, we had already discussed
D.
that because it's, and Commissioner Larson had a good point.
So
It's a
D
moot point because.
in E would be not a problem because it says it'll be addressed in 24 hours. So I'm just saying, if you're looking at them, I mean, we're going to take, if you're looking to incorporate the conditional use, I'm getting that we're taking the weight limitation off.
I guess I would just say we have to incorporate the terms of the conditional use because that's what it says in the conditional use. I would also note your attention that we're requiring them to do certain maintenance within this document. You're telling them they're responsible for the gravel loss, for the soft spots, for weekly blading. So if that's not the case, then this document is not correct either. And I'm just looking for clarification, and I understand what you're saying here, but we have contradicting thoughts.
And that's why we did put those references to say per the road maintenance agreement. So that evening, we realized that, okay, we've got a challenge here because there's requirements that are being put on the conditional use. So let's just make those all reference back to the agreement, the contractual agreement between the county and Novita. And I think in all of those cases, we simply say that we've reached an agreement where we paid $10,000 towards maintenance and the county maintains it. That's what we're doing here. So otherwise, it's just too complicated. When you go back to that, it just gets too complicated.
Well, and I certainly understand what you're saying, I guess, and I'll put whatever the commission wants me to put. But if we draft a road use agreement that says we're responsible for the general maintenance, and also one of the other terms is that Novita is held to all the findings of fact included with this, they're different. And if now you're saying these don't apply, you're saying one of your county department documents is basically for certain parts of it are voided, or I guess I'm lost.
Well, I'm saying it's, well, just the one on the weight limitation, as specified in the road use agreement. Doesn't say what it is. So we're saying there isn't one. So it's not in conflict with conditional use permit, because in the road agreement, we say there is none. And then, down there's another one, the 24 hours, how you want to handle that. There's another one further down, K, gravel, as specified the road use agreement. Well, you can say put a right exactly back, or we can say anything we want in the road agreement. So there's a lot of flexibility in the road agreement to meet the conditional use. That's the way I see it.
Right.
So,
Again, as it relates to load limits, again, we just want to make sure we don't have spring load limits placed on the road and that we have to shut down the plant because, of spring load limits. We're assuming the road will be built to a standard where that won't be an issue.
That's the new road.
The new road. Yep. Yep.
Construction phase.
Yep.
It's talking about.
Yep.
the
Okay.
So that's our road agreement. So we're putting 0, whatever, limitless.
Well,
Not to exceed whatever goes.
Well, we have to comply with state and county load limits, posted load limits.
But I think where the confusion, and this is where I've been trying to say, how are we going to separate this road agreement from the findings of facts and the conditions of the conditional use permit, which, again, we just agreed and all nodded our heads saying we're going to take care of the general maintenance during construction, and then in the findings of facts, it says difference. There's different things. I guess I was hoping we could have a road agreement that says we take over the road, we maintain responsibility of the road, as it pertains to the findings of facts, the things that you agreed to get the conditional use permit. And so we're trying to put the two together, and I think it's difficult to say we'll maintain it when the conditional finding of facts says that they will.
Well,
So
Bob,
it's
correct
really-
me here. When this conditional use was written, the planning and zoning didn't say or have in mind any particular thing other than the wishes of the county government, you people. So that's why it says as specified all the time. So you guys get to do the specifications to meet this, the conditional use. That's the way I see it. Am I right,
So,
Robert?
so if I look at this K and L in the conditional use permit, it says gravel loss, and then also soft spots are created as specified in road use agreement. And in our road use agreement, we say that the county will take care of all general maintenance, and if a contractor makes a mistake or does that stuff, then that'll be the contractor's responsibility or Novita's. Would that not correlate together? Could we not correlate to answer this question saying, okay, we discussed this after the fact and we're not going to have them pay for it, we're going to do the maintenance, but if they do cause the damage, they'll pay for it. Do they not go together, or does that contradict each other? Because
I think at this point I understand what the commission's intention is. We'll take over general maintenance of the road. As soon as we take over the road, anything above and beyond, we would expect Novita to be responsible for. I'm assuming you're giving our highway superintendent the discretion to make those decisions of what's above and beyond. I will try to come up with some language that will resolve this issue. I think we're all on the same page. It wasn't written ideally, but I understand we were at different stages maybe when this was crafted as to where we are now, or the understanding. And I believe I understand what the intention is of everyone, and I will just try to make something work for that. So I think that answers really 2 and 3. I don't know that 4 really is relevant anymore on my list of questions. It sounds like the first 10,000 is due at the end of 2014, or what are your expectations with that?
How do you feel about that, commissioners?
well, I mean, the road's going to get more use when it starts in the spring, so we're going to have some increased maintenance. And so if you want to pay that at the end of the year, I would say end of 2014 would be our first payment to cover
I think so,
usage
too.
over 2014.
Fine.
And then 5 years every year and December down the road. I don't want to wait another full year or that kind of stuff. I would expect that the road's going to get some heavy use right off the bat as soon as spring
Yep.
gets going, so.
That's fine.
And I guess it doesn't make any difference to me because it's a set fee that's
Yeah.
gonna be paid over 5 years, whether it starts at the end of 15 or the end of 6 or end of 14. It doesn't make any difference. I guess as looking as a company, if you're not making any profit prior to the end of 14, you aren't even started an operation yet. And if it's, so I don't care.
It's okay, it's okay. We can make that
If
work
you
too.
think it's
But it is
fine-
costing us.
Well, but it doesn't make any difference. We're still gonna get the same amount of money, whether we get it now or we get it later. I mean,
Well, yes, but, yes, that's right. But when we're putting money out now, we just as well have some to help us deal with that, in my opinion.
When are the bills due on these projects? After the road's done, right? When do we pay these things?
Could you
He
repeat it?
wants to-
If you're constructing in 2014, you're going to be paying bills in 2014
Yeah,
because it's
that's what
out
I
of
mean.
that
No,
budget
I
year.
mean, when do you send the check? After the road's done, you inspect it, right?
As you go,
Well, Huh?
probably as you
Yeah,
go. some
so
of them.
let's just do it then, you know?
Yep.
We haven't put out a dime yet.
2014.
So the 10,000 will be due at the end of each calendar year? Okay.
Well, acceptance of the road, or, you know, whatever the terminology you want to have. When we accept the road from.
This is, yeah,
Oh, well, that's, well, okay, let me back up. I've never looked at the 10,000 as made, and I look as a buy-in on this project, so I'm sorry. That's the way I've looked at it, that they are giving us 50,000 over 5 years for their participating in the project, and I've never tied the word maintenance to it, but I understand what you're saying, but that's my line of thinking.
Okay.
every year, 2014, starting.
And I skipped that question, but that's what Tom touched on. Is it relevant? Does it even matter at this point if the 10,000 is geared towards maintenance or construction? It's part of the ongoing project. It's a commitment Novita's made. I don't know that we need to specify.
I don't think so.
Turning lane. Is that something that needs to be included in part of this? That's something that's been addressed to me? Is that something you want to leave out at this point? I mean, if it is determined that the traffic is going to be to the extent that a turning lane will be needed, is that going to be Novita's responsibility? Is it going to be ours? Do you want to not address it at this point?
Well, I can't imagine a turning lane would be needed. You're talking about in front of the plant.
I defer to Dick on this one.
Turning lane.
The turning lanes? I talked to Rick a little bit about this too, and he believes his design will accommodate trucks turning in and out of there without interfering with each other. In other words, I voiced my concern was that traffic would have to stop to allow people to enter and exit their facility. And I think with the two driveway approach, there should never be a time that they would have to interfere with each other. The other thing is the short distance and the speed involved would not create a problem. So I guess I don't have a real hard feeling towards that as much as I used to, because I was under the impression that it would almost be inevitable that a turn lane would be necessary either at 23 going north and south on the east end or at the plant if it was interfering with, backing up people waiting to get in and out. But I don't think that'll be a problem.
So we won't need to deal with a turn lane at all.
Well, I guess the reason I was hoping it would be included is you never want to say never, especially in a situation like this. I don't think it would be, and I don't want to say it would be, but I think it would be unfortunate if it became necessary that the county would be the one footing the bill for it. I guess I go back to that there's only one reason for the problem or the issue, and that's the traffic going in and out, and, you know, I don't think we should deal with that, but we shouldn't have to.
How do you guys feel if we need a turning lane, you guys need a turning lane, and you ask us for a turning lane, you guys take care of it, if it ever comes necessary? Put that in the road use agreement. I mean,
How do you do, I'm just curious, how do you do that with other places around the county? If a turning lane is needed, how do you do it? What's the, traffic counts are done, or what's the criteria to do?
But I
That
guess
was
my
the
question,
example I was gonna give, that's the only one I'm aware of. That's the only one I'm aware of, that would be the example I would give.
well, my question is when you take in product, is it going to be scheduled in, or could it, if you say, let's just use 50 trucks a day, or are 40 trucks going to come in the morning and 10 in the afternoon, or is your load, are you going to be scheduling in to try to get an even flow of product, or?
Yeah, we'll try to do that. We'll try to do that, and we have a little more control here than what an ethanol plant does, because corn trucks are coming and you're not sure when the farmer's going to deliver, whereas we manage these trucks and where they pick up and where they drop off. So we think it'll be more of a regular schedule, and so there'll be less of this surging of traffic. But there are times when that just is inevitable. It happens, you're down, and now you're trying to pick up and catch up, you know, so there'd be sometimes, you know, yeah, I think that's it. The real question is just safety. I mean, look, we all want this to be safe. I don't think in front of the plant that should really be an issue, because there's so little traffic on the road in the first place. I would just be surprised. And we do have two entrances, an entrance and an exit, so, and they're separated, so there's some space there as well. So it's really over on the concrete highway. I forget the number, is that 231? The north-south county road. You know, that's the question is there a turning lane needed there or not? I don't know that I know enough about it to answer it. It's a big wide, it's a wide road there in front of the Valero facility. I just don't have a feel for whether or not a turning lane is justified there now or not.
Actually, on our plant.
Pull up to the mic. State your name, please.
Rick Egebrecht with Novita. On the plant layout, as you folks maybe remember, we've got an entrance and an exit. The trucks go in and out on the east entrance, but it's wider and it has a wider angle so that trucks can come in unopposed and trucks can go out unopposed. Per the conditional use permit, we have to have 2 access points for fire safety. So the one on the east is more for maybe employees and emergencies, things like that. But still, when you think about where this plant is located, we're kind of on the dead end of an industrial development because of the wellhead protection area to the west of us. No one's going to build a processing facility out there. So there really wouldn't be, the average daily traffic out there is going to be very small.
Well, it could be smart development. I don't think that should be today at least a concern in front of the plant. More so over on the north-south. I just don't know what the traffic counts justify.
Yeah, like you said, Commissioner Falcon, if there's 50 trucks a day and we have to define it yet, but if our shipping and receiving is open, say, 12 hours a day, that's not even 5 trucks an hour, if it's all even. And we know that there'll be peaks and valleys, right? So, it's not apples to apples at all with the ethanol plant as far as truck volume goes.
I guess I'm not concerned about putting any language in there with the turning lane right now. I mean, if we anticipated high volumes and knew there were safety issues, I think we would be due diligence to address it, but I don't think appears to be it's going to be that.
Okay, moving on. Then 7 and 8 tie together. Most road use agreements have some duration that's stated within the agreement. Is this something that only remains in effect up through the 5th and final payment? Is this something where we have expectations of Novita or of Brookings County beyond those 5 years? Is this something you just want to remain indefinite and ongoing until one of the parties agrees, or until both parties agree otherwise. Oftentimes, a lot of road use agreements between townships and entities will say until all the conditions are met within the agreement. You know, with something like this, I guess I would just want something a little more specified than that.
One question. How long is the conditional use permit? I mean, that goes on for forever, correct?
Bob?
I think it's in perpetuity, right? I mean,
Right.
Yes, it is, as long as the plant's in operation.
Right, and so there's things that are in here that they have to continue to do all the time. And then we reference this agreement, so I would think that this agreement would go on the same as that.
I would
Right.
agree.
Wouldn't you think so?
I would
Even, some of
agree.
them will outdate themselves, obviously, with the 10,000 there and
Yeah,
construction
Right,
phase
because
stuff, but
but that's written in, so,
written.
And if the road use agreement expired, then we'd be out
Exactly.
of compliance with the conditional use permit.
right.
exactly,
That's right.
Well, I don't know if that's true or not.
Well,
yeah.
Well, there's other stuff
There's a
like
building
compression
permit for each
breaking and
building
all
permit,
that
yeah.
stuff, you know.
Well, and there's requirements where you're, like, there's a couple of them here too, C and J in this conditional use that reference the road use agreement that we need to make sure we have something in the road use agreement for that. Like J, truck traffic under contract, Novita will be instructed to use 213th Street. That can probably be in there, you know, as in the road use agreement. As per road use agreement, we'll just put that same line in there. And so that would be something that would continue to go on as long as they're operating that facility. We expect to use 213, so.
I agree.
Are there any specific provisions or terms that you think need to be clarified beyond, you know, the fifth and final payment being made? Is there anything we're expecting to hold them to beyond that fifth year? Or just everything that's already been discussed, continuation of that?
Whatever in the agreement, I think, is what we would
Okay.
hold them up to.
right, because we'll be paying taxes after
Yeah.
that point too.
Yep.
Yeah, just again, I'm trying to think about what is there that's beyond the 5 years. You know, the agreement really is for the 10,000 a year, right? And that's the substance, that's the material portion of the agreement is that 10,000 a year. So when that's done, don't we simply become another county taxpayer, and use of the road is no different than any other place? We have to comply with all the rules. It just seems like I'm always concerned about agreements that kind of sit out there and they don't really mean anything. There's not any reason, any requirement. I don't think it's needed for the conditional use agreement. I think that's only in the case where we apply for the building permit, we have to have this in place. Maybe wrong, but I think that's right. So my bias would be at the end of the 5 years, and I'm thinking it's the road maintenance agreement that it sunsets, it ends. We're done with it. Again, unless someone can come up with a reason why it needs to be there.
Yeah, but I think it's referenced in that conditional use. You know, it seems to me that it's gotta be an active document also. Because we still need you to have your traffic go down 213 10 years down the road. And
Your reading of the conditional use is that a road maintenance agreement needs to be maintained in place.
if we're referencing that as much as we are in this,
Well,
then we have to have that document.
That's where you, from a legal perspective, we just need to know if it's required to keep a road. Oh, sorry. We just need to know if it's required to keep the road maintenance agreement in place in order to comply with the conditional use permit.
I would say specifically looking at B, and then just for how often it is referenced, I mean, the Planning and Zoning Commission can view you in violation of the conditional use permit if any of these terms are not followed, and Bob, please correct me on that. And I would say having the road use agreement in place would probably only help and assist. I certainly don't think it would hurt. You know, basically, we're reverting back to a lot of these terms anyway, asking for follow-up on those. It would hurt us anyway.
I really don't think it would hurt anybody. I just think that they go together.
I'm good with that. It's fine. It's just want to make sure we understand what provisions are remaining in the agreement, because it's an agreement that's binding. We just want to know what we're bound by. So that'll work.
Well, Abby, I appreciate these questions stuff, but now we're going through this L, soft spots created will be dug out and crushed concrete material will be used. Well, if it's an asphalt road, I'm not sure if I want crushed, you know, where are we gonna put that in our road agreement?
basically, that was just a guideline as to what would be expected. In other words, there's a lot of ways a person can deal with things like soft spots, and some of them probably wouldn't have the best results, but as far as a general purpose, if there's a soft spot, we want it addressed, dug out, and properly fixed instead of just throw some gravel or crushed concrete in there and hope it dries.
Yeah, well, it won't, of course, this doesn't refer to the construction phase, it's just general use, and I thought we were just taking over the road, so that part.
But the conditional use permit assumed it was a county road. Right, Bob? I mean, you assumed at that point it was gonna be a county road or a township road, and the road agreement was gonna be with that entity, so that really hasn't changed the thought from what the zoning board had.
No, I'm just saying.
During the conditional use hearing, we put that in there for the gravel road. If it becomes some other road other than gravel, then that
Doesn't apply.
it's not required anymore.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that's.
And it says as specified in the road use agreement, and I think that takes care of that.
Well,
Yeah,
we have
once-
to specify, we're fixing the road.
That's,
It's ours.
we did that, yeah. The only one, I guess, that I see in this that doesn't is number C, or letter C, in this here, and it has road use agreement in there. The applicant will be responsible for dust suppression for any residents impacted by the construction traffic. Magnesium chloride base 1 shall be applied and treatment as per road use agreement. So I think we need to discuss that, whose responsibility for that is, so we can reference this. And that's, I don't know if that's a question that you have in yours. I think we need to address it, though.
Well, I would just expand on that, and I guess I'm glad you mentioned it, Ryan, is that, where this conversation initially started, gave me the impression that we would put something in the road use agreement to the effect of, Novita is also to be held to the conditions of the findings of fact and the conditional use permit, subject to, and then put a caveat in there about, the general maintenance will be done by Brookings County. They do above and beyond, but then does that muddy the waters for this agreement without me delineating every single one as to, is that general maintenance? Is that considered above and beyond? Who is responsible for that? When we're kind of saying, now we're saying in our road use agreement, well, actually, we're responsible for most of that, not them.
And that's, I don't know, I think that's okay. I guess that's, because this was early, and this wasn't all discussed yet, and now we're discussing it. And by having, as per road use agreement, okay, we are gonna take maintenance, and we're gonna do that stuff with the soft spots and the different stuff like that, because that's there. But I don't know if we have discussed this magnesium chloride thing yet, and that's where I'd like to have that referenced in there, of who's gonna do that in that discussion.
Because initially, when that was discussed, we asked the township to do the north-south roads, not this road.
Correct.
It's, the conditional use was for the construction, and that's what we brought up at another meeting here recently, and she got a quick answer, but not a definitive, that township's giving up some road, and get some more money, they'll take care of it after this.
The north-south roads.
Yeah, the north-south.
Not this one.
Now, once it's concrete or asphalt, we don't
It
need
won't
dust.
matter.
But this says
But
during construction,
Yeah.
so I don't think this has been addressed on whose
No, I don't
responsibility for
either.
this during construction phase.
Just the construction.
Just the construction, it
Yep.
says by the construction traffic, and so that's one, that we have not discussed yet.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, because I am so worried that when they're all done, I still want that taken care of by
North-south.
somebody,
Yeah,
for
I
those
agree.
people up there.
Well, they already agreed, north-south, the township would take it.
Well, the chairman did. I don't know
Yeah.
if they had a vote yet.
But you might want to get something more formal from the township.
And I-
But we need to take care of this right now.
Right.
Don, I've been thinking, why don't you build a plant and we'll build a road?
No doubt.
Well,
Amen.
and I think, when this first thing started, I was hoping we could just have a road agreement that says Brookings County will maintain the road as per the, per the findings of facts. I mean, the findings of facts are a document that is on file that says these are the responsibilities forever. Now, you're not gonna be responsible for gravel if it's not gravel anymore. It's pretty obvious we're not gonna come back and say you need to gravel that road if we got asphalt on it. So some of these aren't gonna be, but we're trying to mix the two together, and I think when we try to do that, it really gets, it gets confusing. I mean, we take over the road in consideration of $50,000, $10,000 for 5 years. That's what the road agreement should say. And we agree to all the findings and facts in the conditional use permit, and we go on our way, because we're trying to, these questions really go back to the conditional use permit, not to what we really are trying to achieve.
But it says one of the requirements to getting a conditional use was getting a road use agreement. And so we have to have one.
Well, that's fine. I mean, we need to have one, but it doesn't need to be so detailed to cross-reference back and forth. I mean, it's getting to the point where.
Well, I think Abby's, she's a lawyer, for Christ's sake. She makes her living making sure everything jives.
Yeah. She's trying to protect us.
Right.
I understand
She's trying
that.
to protect us, so I don't have a problem with this. I think she got the idea that when we say specify, a lot of this is specified that nothing's gonna happen, but there it is.
Yeah.
We met the conditional use. We specified nothing, you know, whatever it is, for some of them. And so we keep it, so I don't have a problem. I think number 9 is the one that kinda, I don't have no idea how we wanna handle that, but.
So
Before we go there,
Meg is going to be our responsibility then.
Well, not necessarily. That's a construction, that's a conditional use permit. So we gotta, it's in there already that, you know, you're gonna do that. And so if we're gonna change that, we gotta change it in the road use agreement, otherwise we're keeping it the same.
Well, and look, from a business point of view, I just want to make sure that in the road maintenance agreement, or the road agreement, whatever we call this, that it references the fact that by paying this $10,000, we're complying with these requirements of us. These, you know, we want to keep this really clean. I don't want a situation where we have a road agreement that kind of sits by itself, and we have these provisions here that we have to comply with, and that there's not a clear connection. I want these two to be linked, and it says by paying the $10,000, we're complying with these requirements, period. That's just got to be there, because it just gets too difficult for all of us. And yeah, so I would again ask that again, if you want to start the first year being the construction year, then we'll pay the $10,000, and again, if it's needed, you take care. Exactly, because we don't have that equipment. We don't have water trucks and stuff, you know. So that's what we would ask.
And that's fine, I mean, but I just want it addressed in
Yep.
the agreement that,
Yep.
that, referencing back that we are taking care of it.
Exactly.
And that $10,000, we will take general maintenance and magnesium chloride that was required of them in the conditional use.
Yep.
So there's not a question, I guess, with the two.
Okay, the last issues I had put on there, I agree I would never put in an agreement like this, but they were included. This is an issue that was started by Novita in their letter of intent, and I don't believe it was clarified at the last meeting what the commissioners felt. So I posed kind of 2 scenarios to you in questions 9 and 10 that stemmed from Novita's number 6 in their letter of intent. And I don't know that this is relevant to be included, but I'm coming to you to see if that is something you want in there, that we're another business entity to build in that location, to want to become involved in a road use agreement with the county regarding this particular roadway, then will that change any of the parameters of the Novita road use agreement? Will it become null and void at that point? And then the other issue I would pose, and that's what I believe they're addressing here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we enter into some other agreement with another business entity with a totally separate roadway, how do you want it handled?
Well, separate.
Yeah, if I could just say again, you know, we put out this, these letter of intent so we could talk through them. You know, we gave and said, look, you know, if and we know that this is, I think, the first road agreement maybe the county has with an entity. We're okay, we'll do it. But if in the future the policy changes and now we're not requiring road agreements anymore, then we just ask for ours to be rolled off as well. So it seems like just a fairness issue, that's all.
I guarantee you, we won't ever get to a point where we don't require road agreements. I don't think so. I think they'll always be in effect.
Yeah, and that's fine, if that's the case, it's not an issue. We just say if it's a road agreement, or if you build a road for an entity, and don't charge them any road maintenance agreement, or any road maintenance costs, then ours rolls off. Pretty straightforward.
Well,
Anticipate you wouldn't do that, but.
I think road maintenance agreements they have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. I think we've learned that in our township road maintenance agreements. However, I really, I shouldn't say we guarantee you, but I believe that there will always be road maintenance agreements. And obviously, if another company comes in and wants us, wants to start a company on one of our roads that we have to take over, or a county road, we're going to still have a maintenance agreement with them, and so I don't think it's going to be a problem.
I think what he's worried about is that Leroy Anderson sells one on the north side a year from now, and he's stuck for 50, and this new one comes, hey, I got a heck of a deal for you. There's a road there by the end of next year for you to use, and you don't have to pay a dime for it because it's already being built by somebody else. I don't know if I speak for you, Don, but that's what you're worried about. It's not whether there's a road use agreement up by White, whether somebody's going to use this road that you just chipped in on.
Or just within the county, or just saying again, if this is, we're good with this, and we know it's first one of its kind, but we're good with this if this is the go-forward plan. If the go-forward plan changes where now you decide for some reason you're not going to have road maintenance agreements, then ours was rolled off as well. That's all. Just no.
Yeah, if that's the case,
Yeah.
but I mean, we got to take these road use agreements case by case.
Yeah, oh,
depending on
sure.
the traffic,
Yep.
depending on
Yep.
all of that type of stuff.
Yep.
And if what I don't want, I guess, is if we turn around and the maintenance for a gravel road is $5,000 and they input $5,000, it doesn't mean we're going to turn around and credit you back $5,000.
No.
Okay,
It
each
has
one's
nothing to
different
do with
stuff.
our economics.
Okay.
It's just, it's just if somebody else locates on that road or elsewhere for that matter, you say, hey, we're just not gonna do road agreements anymore, then roll ours off as well.
You
That's
don't
all.
want to be like the banks and the credit unions, is what you're saying.
Right.
Exactly.
It's just a fairness issue. It's not about us getting compensated or reimbursed or anything like that.
I
Keep it
do
really
think,
simple.
because of all the stuff we've gone through, anything that goes through planning and zoning is gonna come back with recommendation of road agreement, whether it be with the township, whether it be with the county, who it is, that's gonna be part of, I would assume that it'll be part of any conditional use or findings of facts that has to be done. So I can assure you, I don't think it's gonna come out of planning and zoning without that recommendation anyway.
Okay.
We'll probably have to change our road specs because I got a hunch the load limits are going to be different by the time we build this road than they are today. There's a major move on to increase the legal load. Well, you're well aware of it, Dick. To increase the load limit from 80 up to 97,000.
And that's what they're trying, but I hope they don't accomplish that. But
Well, why not? Because they're doing it in
Well, that's really not
foreign
something
countries and et cetera.
we need to look at right now. We need to get this one figured out. Okay, I think, have we answered all of your questions, Abby?
So those last issues we just discussed do not need to be included.
No, I think there's always going to be road agreements.
Well, again, no, I guess my understanding was we were going to simply say as long as the county requires it going forward, if the county doesn't require it going forward, then this rolls off.
And I don't think there should be
have no problem
anything.
putting that in.
If we would ever do away with doing
Road agreements, then yours would,
Yeah, that's all.
I can't either.
My last question to all of you then, and it's not listed on here, but just to confirm, this is something you want done and drafted and signed prior to us taking over the road and getting final say on the funding?
You were warned by Deputy State's Attorney Mark Cradaville all the time about doing that action, because in the past, the board used to approve resolutions contingent on something else, and then it wouldn't matter if something fell through, you had to come back and redo the whole thing anyways, because you can't, I don't know, that's what Mark's position was. I don't know, maybe you want Abby to look into that, but.
I mean, I can draft anything, but I would reiterate that concern, and I would always advise you that the best time to draft and prepare and sign off on a document would be when we're in that present situation.
If I could, I'd just request that we do find a way to get this done, because on the due diligence checklist, one is approval for rezoning and building clear approval for building permits. And we can't really say we have that unless we have this road agreement, because it's the conditional uses requires us to have the road agreement in place. So we just ask we get this done. We can put a provision in there that it doesn't go into effect until There's no requirement that you, to build a road in this road agreement, I don't think. I haven't seen it yet. So it's a matter of, you know, maybe it needs to be in there, I don't know. But it's just, again, we just ask for this road agreement, road maintenance agreement to be finalized and agreed upon and approved, so we can then say, look, we've got clear, we don't have any regulatory approvals as it relates to the site. We're done.
And this is due to the requirements on the conditional use permit, correct?
Yes, correct.
Is there any other way for the board to take action if they're satisfying the conditional use permit without acting on the road agreement?
Well, I'd defer to Bob again on that then.
If the person in charge of the highway in the zoning board's opinion is Mr. Burke, and if he wants to sign a type statement saying that he's all right with the project, then we would allow. I realize the county commission, but we need a document on file in our records showing that the road authority, which if it's a county road, county highway superintendent, understands that the facility's being built and he's agreeing to maintain it or whatever.
Let me ask you this, what's the ramifications of having this agreement signed and stuff like that now? What could happen if, for example, you don't get your funding and the project doesn't go? You know, what could happen? Is there anything there then that would be a problem?
I mean, you're just putting a lot of what ifs and contingencies within the document. You know, I can't speculate as to.
No contingencies, we just sign the document. We sign the document, when you get it next week and we all agree to it, we sign it, and they have a signed road agreement. And if they don't get the funding, which is one of the requirements or whatever, what have we done that to the detriment? What problems have we caused?
I'm sorry, so if we just act as if we currently own the road within the document?
How about we put the contingency on the contract with the township, not on the road agreement? We're taking over that road contingent as this project goes forward. And when the contingency's with the township, not on this road agreement. We go ahead and do the road agreement.
If you have an agreement on file saying that you're going to maintain that road, regardless of who has jurisdiction over that road, can the township then ask us to maintain it if you have an agreement?
We can't get our grant without us taking it.
That's my question. If we have that on here, what could happen if, again, these are what ifs, but we got to deal with that part of it.
If we have a document that says we're going to maintain the road, but we currently don't have control over the road by resolution, and something were to happen, we're certainly responsible.
Well, wait a minute, okay. The agreement is with these guys, and these guys go away. The document, the conditional use permit goes away, the road agreement goes away. The only thing we got to worry about is what we've done with the township. And if they conditionally did it contingent, gave us the road to maintain and contingent upon this project being built. If it doesn't get built, they got the road.
No, first of all, they don't give us the road, they request the county to take over jurisdiction of the road. So technically, it's a township road until the county takes over jurisdiction.
Well, the request is contingent. I'm just, it doesn't have.
They already have it here, and we're just not acting on it until we know we're moving forward, because once we act on it, we can't get it back. And my concern would be, regardless of who the agreement is between you and Novita or whoever, it's still a public document that's going to be on the public record, in the minutes, in a public record that can be pulled out for liability. Even though it's between Novita, it's still something that's, you've taken official action on, and it's on file.
What agreement?
This road maintenance
Oh, I don't have a
agreement.
problem with that. If they go away, it goes away, you know. I'm worried about getting the road.
But I'm saying it wouldn't go away because it's already on the public record, because you've acted on it. Because as a board, you're going to have to act on approving this road maintenance agreement at some point.
Yeah, and we approve it. They don't do the project, so I don't care how many records you got. Nothing's happening.
But I do think, Abigail, I would think there'd be a provision you could place in there that just says it's contingent upon the county accepting the township road by a certain date, and then if it doesn't, then the agreement just goes away.
Certainly, there are a number of contingencies I already have in there based on the way the situation is right now. The whole preamble is contingencies. I think the issue that you're addressing, Ryan, and I guess the only answer I can give you is if we create a document that, if you were saying to remove these contingencies and saying, just say flat out, we're doing maintenance of this road, and let's say the project falls through months down the road, not tomorrow, but a ways down the road, and something happens in the meantime, the county is certainly responsible, or could be held or sued or whatnot because of that.
Well, definitely, because after the project started, we're gonna have that road. Okay, I know that, I'm worried about the project doesn't even get off the ground. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, if it doesn't get the funding, okay? We've been holding off on getting that road, because we don't want the road unless this project goes. And now we've got ourselves in a situation where we have waited to get this road, because we don't want it to there, but they need a signed conditional or a road maintenance agreement to comply to get their funding to keep it going. So, you know, that's the problem. I mean, there's a thing that needs to get signed before this one does. And I agree, and I guess my thoughts were with Tom, that if they don't do the project, conditional use is not satisfied, they don't get it, then that road maintenance was for them, and that's gone.
Goes away.
They're gone.
And we don't have anything with the township. We don't have the township. They've asked us. We say, no, we're not taking it over, and we're done. But I guess that's where I would defer to you, is that going to be the case? Even though it's just a public thing, it didn't go.
Well, I'm going to protect us as much as possible within the document and include all the legal language I can that I think will cover these bases and situations. But all I can tell you is anybody can sue anybody for anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Madam Chair, as we digest this thing over and over and over, really, if we were to do it correctly, what you want us to do is take over that road, make the road agreement. What's our worst-case scenario? We got a mile of road. And, you know, we'll just contract with if the thing didn't work, we'll just contract with the township that will pay whoever they have contracted to maintain the road, move the snow off, that sort of thing. Do that mile and they can bill the county for that mile of maintenance. I mean, the worst case scenario is we got a mile of road. Jeez.
Yeah.
Let's get the resolution done. Let's move forward.
I agree with Don. I think we keep adding contingencies upon contingencies, which throws up red flags to everybody, because what if this, and what if that, and what if this? Let's just enter into an agreement to take over the road. Let's enter an agreement on the road agreement, have it done. If it all falls through, the road agreement's not in place because it's not being built, we could always go back to the township and say, we'd like to give you that road back. If they say, that's yours now, that's fine. And I can't imagine that they've lost or gained nothing if they get the road back. They've only gained if we keep the road. So they're back to the same position they were. Let's just go ahead with the agreements, and let's go ahead with this, and we don't have to worry about it.
The other worst-case scenario would be then you go down to Al Houghton and say, boy, we've got this thing all laid out. We've been working for months on this, and all the groundwork is taken care of. Can you find somebody to locate somewhere out there on that road? Because we've got the work done.
Because I think it's the same level. I mean, we're dealing with the state and all these grants and these funds that we told them we were gonna take over the road. We can't go back and say, well, we got these things, but if we don't take over the road, so let's just make it official.
That would make it cleaner.
Okay, so we're
And
gonna-
you know, I think maybe a guy like me can understand that.
Would it be, Madam Chairman, would it,
I mean the road's done. I mean all the use and all the road agreement stuff's done.
Would it be
There would be no
appropriate-
road built. If you guys don't do it, we're not building a road.
exactly, would it be appropriate to have a subcommittee appointed to work on the details of the agreement? Because I can see the legal document will have, you know, lots of legalese in it as well. And in order to expedite this so we can get it in a shape that is ready, could we have someone designated to be the point person for the commission to work out those details? And
I don't think it's necessary. I think you're fairly clear now on where you're going.
Can you get a copy to them before that? So
okay,
they can look
maybe, yeah, maybe that'll clear things up.
Yeah, yeah, because I think more subcommittees are gonna hold things up
Okay.
even longer. So I think if we go ahead and take over the road, which we'll act on that at our next meeting.
Yep, that would be.
And Abby can go ahead, that'll give her the time to get this done. And did you have anything else, Abby?
Nope, it'll be ready to go at the next meeting, and you
Okay.
guys will have a copy in advance.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
And then meeting date is the 19th?
Yep.
Yeah, Thank you for your concerns, Abby.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for all your work on this project, too.
Okay, moving on. Action to authorize the chairperson to sign a grant funding request letter for a railroad crossing on 34th Avenue. I had
So
met.
moved.
Okay. Motion by Wysa, second by Krogman, discussion. I had met with Banners, and they said that they would do the legwork to look at grants for that. And it was a 90-10, as you read in the, so that would help us a little bit, so we'd be back now to 27 as opposed to 275.
Well, that was my concern from the beginning of this
Yeah.
whole thing,
Yeah.
was how much was that gonna cost?
Yeah.
And we hadn't had that
And
discussion.
the
so.
other thing, you know, I was feeling that arms might not be necessary if we had lights, but now, if you put lights up, arms have to come with, so we don't have a choice in that matter. So I think it's important that we try to get this grant money.
Obviously, this was just a draft that he provided to us. Is there any changes that you would like made to the letter prior to it going?
Is there any, I mean, we have obviously Pay First District, and they were instrumental in our other grants. Is there something that we should have Banner talk to them?
Nope,
or no?
I already visited with First District, as did Banner, and this is the result of those conversations.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it, are you?
Yeah, I think this is a dangerous area, and it's the way it's built now, the hump and all that stuff. It needs to be fixed anyway, regardless of when and what
True.
happens out there.
Okay, call the roll.
Wyseth?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Falcon? Larson? Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And Stephanie, I'll print a clean copy of this down in my office before you leave for you to sign.
Okay. Action on a funding request in the amount of $500 for the Festival of Lights Parade. Could I have a motion, please? Motion by Falcon, second by Krogman. Discussion. This is something we've done year after year. If there's no further discussion, go ahead.
Yeah, in these requests typically come out of the commissioner's public relations line in the commissioner's budget, and as you can see, we have currently $1,700 remaining out of the $3,000 that was budgeted. That $500 amount is the same amount that they've requested every year since 2004.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Krogman?
Aye.
Falcon? Larson? Wyseth?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Motion carries.
He said he got kicked off last year. Okay, commission assistant reports.
I have a little bit of follow-up on in your packet, you had a copy of a request from an individual regarding putting up a sign for the Sherwin-Linton recognition. And Dick was able to give me a few contacts with the Department of Transportation. And actually, their statewide policy does not allow that on state roads. They only do governors and U.S. senators or representatives. So I will correspond back to the individual who made the request to us, but I just received that information back this week. So actually, it might have been Friday, but it was just within the last couple days. I need everyone to put on their calendar that on December 19th is our Leadership Brookings program. I put a copy of the schedule in your packet. The commissioners' presentation to that group will be between 10 to 11 o'clock. It'll be here in this room. Typically, what they want to hear is your experience with county government. What are some of the challenges we face in your role as an elected official? Well, we can do this soon. I did receive the agreement back from the state that will amend our original agreement of accepting those funds for the Novita Road. It gives them another 180 days versus the 90-day window that we were working with. They think that that should be plenty of time for us to return that commitment letter back to them. By then, Novita will have their financial closing, so we'll know we're proceeding forward with the road. I did give you an update on just the township funding requests. just to see, so you guys could get an idea of who's been turning in their requests. We did have one other township that had their inspection complete, which was Eureka. I just found out today. So, but I'll talk to them about submitting their claim paperwork. But as you can see, there's only a couple townships left, Sherman and I don't have my glasses on, in Brookings Township, and then at Argo. Nope, Brookings is done. Argo, Lake Hendricks, and Sherman.
Do you think, Commissioners, do you think it would be a good idea for us to send them a reminder letter?
Oh, I'm corresponding with these
You
guys
are?
already. Yeah,
Okay.
they're all just starting to kind of get everything finalized. So I've had contact with everybody here. One of the issues that came up with Lake Hendricks Township is the road that they're doing, and I just got this information, I think yesterday, right, Dick? I forwarded it on, maybe it was yesterday or Friday. They're having some trouble. Their contractor is saying that they're not getting the work done in a timely manner because the gravel they've been having such high demands from the county. And so I'm trying to pull up that email that I had from them. They requested some assistance in signing. They wanted the county to see if we could help them sign some of their roads. I did ask Dick if that's something that we've ever done in the past for other townships, which we haven't. That's not been our practice, so I'll probably respond back to them that that's not something that we've done in the past for townships. But it continues to move along, and Dick gets out there really quick and verifies that the work's done. I just wanted you guys to see where we were at on that. Just some updating of events and things that we've been doing in our office. You can read through those. I don't need to tell you everything, but you probably got contacted by the public affairs class. Maybe one of the students, they might not have called you guys. I think they called Stephanie. We also had department heads that participated in that as well. They were very thankful for us participating in that. We did have our department head meeting, and as you can see, we had 39 employees participate in the flu shots. This Thursday is our annual wellness fair in the morning, Thursday morning until noon. So I'd encourage you to come if you want to see any of the vendor booths that we have. I also do need those health insurance forms in by Friday, so those of you that brought them, we can go down to my office afterwards and make sure we have all the paperwork that we need for you completed. It's been going really smooth this year, which has been nice. Let's see here. Oh, we did have a Railroad Authority meeting on Monday. I was not actually at the meeting, but the Railroad Board was. We were having problems with contacting one of the Railroad Authority board members, and we started looking into the bylaws, and we found out that we may need to look at the way that we appoint the members to that so that it's a more formalized process. We do our appointments every year, but we need to make sure the City of Volga is doing their appointments annually and having that on the record. And then the Railroad Board has to formally appoint that 5th member too, so that we have that on the record as well. And it looks like we might be in need of a replacement for that. I don't know if they discussed that at the meeting or not. Did you? Okay, so we'll be going through with that as well. Basically, the revision was they were extending the deadlines for them on the loan agreements. Every 3 years, is that what the appointments are? Yeah. We do ours annually, though. Yeah. Well, because sometimes they change your mind. Although I think Don and Dennis have been on it as long as you've been on the board, so, on the Railroad Authority. We do have a Joint Powers Board meeting this Thursday. Jeff and I received a copy of the kind of final punch list items that we still have some ongoing things that we're trying to resolve. We still have the building envelope issues and kind of the HVAC system issues that led to some of the cracking and peeling in the woodwork and stuff last year, which we've just done our switch over to heat or winter mode, so we're starting to kind of see what's happening now with those numbers now, and it looks kind of similar to last year. They've made some tweaking improvements, so it's a little bit better than last year, but it's still lower than where we'd like to see it, which I'm sure they'll discuss that on Thursday. Like I said, we have the Employee Health and Wellness Fair on Thursday. A reminder that we're closed on Veterans Day. I often get phone calls and emails from some people on those holidays, so I just want to make sure you guys are aware we're closed. At your next board meeting, Youth and Government will be here. For those board members that haven't had that, usually what we do is we'll schedule a time on the agenda, and they actually come into the board meeting so they can see what it's like, and then we just kind of do a real brief introduction of the students into the board, and then they continue with their tour, so Katie will end up giving them the tour for us. I don't think I had any, oh yeah, I do down here. The soil conservation tour is obviously not scheduled for this week. There was a conflict there, so we're working on scheduling a future date for that. I got that one. I sent out an email, I believe, yesterday to everybody. We received a meeting notice from the 8-County Sioux Valley Commissioners Association about the next meeting, which is November 18th. And I have not heard from Ryan, Don, and Dennis if you plan on attending. Don?
Yes.
Yep.
When?
It's
18th.
November 18th. Okay.
Yep. I'm going.
Okay, I'll mark you all down as yeses. And that's all, and then we do have an executive session scheduled at the end of the meeting. That should probably not take more than 5 or 10 minutes. I just want to update you on union negotiations, and I have performance reviews to just hand out from last year so that we can start the process for next year.
Okay, very good. Deputy State's Attorney's report.
I think I've taken up enough of your time today, so nothing else to report.
It's all right, Abby. We appreciate that. Okay, commissioner reports and discussion items. Tom?
Well, partnership didn't have a meeting on the 18th, they did on the 29th for a planning session. You know, they've got some challenges and a lot of good things been moving in private offices. That's just one of many things that are in the works, but they really do appreciate the county and city's support. And the strategic plan session did take a long time because there are a few challenges, just like everything else in my West. I missed the East Central Behavioral Health, but they just went over the bylaws. Oh, I'm sorry, the bylaws, and they were basically what? Well, Stephanie and I visited a little bit about, they had the changes on how people are appointed, and the county is still the same. You know, because of politics, it's a 3-year term, and they're making it a 3-year term. The county will still be a 3-year term, but, you know, you might not be elected, so you'd be off. And so they're willing to just work with that. But they did make some changes. That was the only thing that affected us. Boys and Girls Club, I went to it, and so did Stephanie. She had to go, and they gave us calendars. And I stayed for the program, and it was, I felt a little guilty because here I am on the taxpayer's dime being thanked, you know, other than I do give money, but nothing to the degree that many of those people that are there. And, but I don't feel guilty about giving them money. That juvenile court thing, that if we save one kid, what do we save in cost of in being at the county jail? And our gift to the capital campaign, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a great organization that does so much good and going to save us money in the long run. And then I've been talking with Paul Cosbaugh and about, they were kicking around, that's the wonderful organization that led the way to get us those grants. And they want to work on a pre-permitting identified sites program. And I and Stephanie, I'd like to have our zoning office, Megan, Bob, this Stephanie Miller, and Elwine, sit down with us and go over his document. And if I guess we get more, then we have to have the public. But if it's just fine. But they have some ideas to make it easier pre-permitting, and he just wants some input before the state rolls it out. And I was wondering if you could do a survey monkey or whatever those things are and see when Megan, Bob, Steph, and I are available. And when I was at the Boys and Girls Club, Vanessa did say they do have some office space if 4-H ever wanted to go out there. And one thing I would like, Chairperson Miller, is that we put on our agenda to give an answer to the city. I don't think it's fair to the 4-H extension to just leave them flowing in the wind, wondering what we're coming up with, or get an offer from the city and not recognize it. And I did go out there and talk to our weed supervisor and looked at the place over. We have a huge office that's eventually going to be occupied by 1 or 2 people. And the Swiftel has a tremendous need for office space, and I would like to see us move forward as soon as possible to make office space available to the Swiftel and work on our memorandum of understanding or whatever, or put it in a phase if we decide to accept the offer, have a different offer, counter offer. But I think it's not fair to the city to get a letter and then just blow it off. I think we should take some time to discuss what are we doing. That'd be fair to the 4-H and extension too, to know what our plans are, for sure. So if we can
Well,
put
I
that.
think we need to make some plans before we can answer the offer. That's why I thought it was premature to ask them to make an offer for us, because we've not decided what's going to happen with 4-H yet.
Well,
But-
I guess, are we going to take care of 4-H, or is 4-H going to? See, I'm one that don't want to tell them to go to the outdoor center or to the Boys and Girls Club or build a new place or whatever. In my mind, I'm willing to give them the money that the city would give for the building and to put towards whatever lease to purchase, rent, build, whatever they wanted to do. But the question is, are we going to do the work for them, or are they going to do
Well, keep in mind that you've tasked the extension board to do that. However, they have a meeting this month. They've not even had a meeting yet.
I'm not saying, I'm just talking office space in the immediate future, the rooms and everything. I'm willing to 1 year, whatever you want to put
Well,
on it. But
here's the other point about that. You know, back a couple years ago, we did work on office space, trying to let Swiftel come in and use some of that office space. And no agreement between the two entities out there could ever be met. So, you know, I think we just need to hold off a little while and give the extension board time to do what you've tasked them to do.
Well, I guess my comment, I don't think the extension board will do anything as long as we don't do anything. It's
I
gonna
think
sit.
they will.
It's
They've
gonna-
been tasked to.
Well, they've been tasked to, but I think we need a deadline, we need some decisions to be made. You know, I think the Swiftel needs office space, and I've always, you know, maintained that I don't want to sell unless I know where we're going. But we have to make that decision so we can continue to move forward if we're going somewhere else. And I'm with Tom. I'm not willing to, you know, the one that's gonna wanna tell 4-H where to go. They should come up with a place that'll work for them, if that's the case. I mean, it's pretty obvious that there's an interest in our facility, and it's pretty obvious to me right now, we've got 2 people in an office space area that could hold 10. And we're spending a lot of money and wasting a lot of, you know, utilities and just different things that we're doing, and we're not being fiscally responsible with our money the way it's going right now.
Well, I just think we have to give the extension board time to do their thing. It takes time to find a place. I beat the path a year or 2 ago trying to find something, and so you know, it takes time to find something.
But we could still enter an agreement with the city that it's gonna be a year. Yes, we will sell, but it's gonna be a year. We're not gonna move out for a year or 18 months or whatever it would take, and then everybody has time. It's not like it's January 1st, you better find a place to go. That's kind of what
that was my thought.
Would you give me until after the extension board meeting this month?
That's another question I had. When do they meet? We can sure give them that. That's why I'm just saying, maybe at the next meeting, we just schedule a discussion on it. We'll know more what they're.
14th is when they
But
meet.
I'm saying you can cut a deal and you can say you don't get occupancy till January 20, 15, I mean, whatever on that. I just think in the meantime, I think the city deserves an answer that we're at least planning on something, whatever that something is. But in the meantime, I look at those two offices, and I do know, and I've known for a long time, that they're short on space because I've tried to get interns out there, and they don't have even place for student interns. And and I think it's become acute, and I'd like to work with the city on using that space, whatever fashion that would be.
I think it's 7, but I'm not positive. Yeah, 7. Mm-hmm. Yeah, here, I think.
So what is it?
14th.
White meeting, lunch and whatever, mingle. And what time is it?
7.
Yes. I think I've done.
All right. 16th, I went to the BDC meeting, and there they approved the Ag Tech Center construction contract to get that built, and accepted some, foundation accepted some contributions. They adopted a resolution in support of the K through 3 school bond issue, and gave an update on Minnesota West and how that's going on and stuff like that. So that's what happened at BDC. The 16th went to the Delta Chai Dinner. The 24th went to the Ag Tech Center groundbreaking. After the BDC there. 24th went to the hospital board meeting. And got some good reports from everybody, and updated demolition of the skilled nurse facility at Brookings Manor remodel, everything like that. And they have their 2014 capital budget going on, so get ready for that. So then, next thing is their strategic plan. They're doing into a planning session where they're going to do their strategic planning, and we're going to have time for that. So that's what's going on there. Went to the Railroad Authority meeting. We got that approved, and then obviously the 28th had the domestic abuse fundraiser, walking their shoes and stuff. So that was a good event, fun event. Glad I was in there, and I appreciate all the county employees who did it all, put it all together, and raised all the funds, and that was a neat deal. And thank you for doing that work and everything. That was cool. And then went to the Raven Open House also, again, which was a good deal. Had some really good comments about just the relationship of SDSU and the engineering department, and all of the people that get hired and we keep. And they talk about all the people that they take off, and that's, that's what happens. A certain number of engineers, some are going to stay, but Raven's 3 vice presidents are all SDSU graduates, and so it's a Sioux Falls firm. They're hiring from SDSU. We have all of our local that hire, and there's a lot of people in the state that hire from SDSU. All of our people we go. So sometimes I hate to hear the, we're losing everybody, we're losing everybody. It's going to happen. We also keep a lot of people in town too. So, and in our state. So I'd rather choose the good part of it rather than think about the negative part of it, because we can't keep them all. But that was good too. So, and then Bob, for Wednesday the 13th, the ICS training, if you got a spot open there, I'll go to that one. So, and Abigail, thank you for your work on this road maintenance agreement. It's our first one, and I don't think any up here are attorneys. I know that for a fact. Might think we are, but I do appreciate the questions. I think it brought up good discussion with everybody. Them having here, I like getting it on the agenda and talking and discussing it, and getting a good agreement started. Will it be perfect? No, I don't think it is, but I think the more discussion we have, the better chance we get it right the first time. So thank you for your work on that. That's it.
a lot different than it was the last time. So that was a good opportunity. Then on the 24th, I traveled up here for a state 911 coordinating board meeting, and there's a lot of stuff going on with next generation and GIS work with at the state level. There's going to be, it'll affect our GIS, getting information and so on. Where it's very, Brookings County is way ahead of the curve there and has all that information available. So we start putting the system together, and it's going to be a statewide system that everybody will receive the same service. So we've been doing a lot of work on that. And then on the, it's 28th, right? The railroad authority, got me too on time.
I would, time, what are you talking about? Your time, yeah.
Anyway, well, whatever. But, yeah, that one I didn't get on my calendar, and it slipped by me until 8:05. We got there. Then on the 31st, I did attend the Raven open house. Ribbon cutting that out there, which is, again, we reported on very good information. I think that, well, then how you was walking. Again, I too want to thank the staff. You know, I think it's so great that our staff is willing to do so many things, and now they got the food thing they're doing now that's coming up, and I just think the staff really gets energized, and I get to see the sides of the staff that I've ever seen before, especially Bob.
That's not a good thing, is it?
I mean, it's just something that it's an opportunity to see once in a while. But thank you, Bob, for doing that, and I think it was a good event. We enjoyed it. I wish Tom could have joined us because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the only problem I had was the check I gave you was endorsed by Skinner's.
Wow, that's just the way it goes sometimes. My wife made a comment to me. She says, "I've never heard so many heels scraping."
They were
She said,
scraping.
women are so embarrassed when they scrape their heel. That's all you can hear was solid
Yeah.
scraping going down the side. But anyway, that was good.
It was pretty neat watching that crowd of people walk up the street.
Okay,
Thank
Don?
you. And just to comment, what Abby, we challenged her to do with giving this, I mean, we handed her a mess.
Yes.
It wasn't like it was something to
Yes.
just make a document. You got this agreement, that agreement, put them together and make them work, and I appreciate the time and the call and things like that. Thank you.
Okay, Don.
I'm pretty much the same as everyone else. And of course, I had the Delta Chi event, and what these little programs mean to these young people when you come out to them. The next week, Sharon and I were at the football game, and we left the president's reception, and we were walking to the parking lot. Kid pulls up with a golf cart, do you folks like a ride? And so, well, sure, we hopped in. And he said, "Hey, I'm so-and-so," and I have to admit, I can't remember his name, but he says, I don't recall your name, but I know you're on the county commission and you were at our event. And he says, "We were really pleased that you guys came." He said, "We enjoyed having you." So these kids notice what's going on. Then I went to the Ag Tech Center, and that was groundbreaking, and that's really exciting stuff they're doing out there, and it's going to be a great thing. Obviously, when they get beyond the experimental stage and they construct their small plant with the ability to be expanded into full commercialized plant, that's apparently going to be located here in Brookings County. That's what we want. Then the Raven Open House again was really neat, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for our young people here at the university to really get involved in a lot of hands-on experimental work and technology, and it's exciting what they're doing. And like everybody else, I mentioned it before, how our staff is always at the forefront at our state meetings, being involved in activities. We got to socialize with them, and they've done a fantastic job of putting us through the walk in a mile, but thank God for tape. And Falcon, you didn't mention that, but you enjoyed the taping too, because that's what saved our ankles and made it work. But Yeah,
Oh, geez.
trying to get it off was tough, but it was great, and so a lot of activities in Brookings County's got a lot of positive things going on, but I think the thing I notice, all of our departments, the synergy that's developed through projects like the Walk in My Shoes and things like that. You see people from all the different departments working together as a group and having a good time, and that team aspect is real important, and I think that's one of the reasons that Brookings County is moving forward the way it is. I think that covers it.
I failed to mention something. Can I comment quick? I should have told you guys this during my staff report, but one of the things that we're looking at, well, we're in the process of developing, is a Brookings County Cares link on our website, and it will just take you to a specific page, and what we're going to do is we're going to highlight all of these events that employees are donating their time and resources to in the community, so that the community can see employees being connected to the different things going on. And this is one of them that we're going to put on there, as a walk a mile in our shoes. And like when we do the food drive and the toy drive and those things, we're going to start highlighting some of those things for a way for the employees to feel connected to the community that we serve. And I meant to mention that 2 meetings ago, and I just thought of it when you were saying that, Don, so I appreciate that. The other thing that we did that was different this year that we haven't done before is this building participated in the downtown trick or treat on Halloween. Employees well, at least on the county side, I can't speak for the county, but for the city, but any departments that wanted to participate, we just went out and bought candy. And we had the balloons like the rest of the downtown businesses, so people could come into the building and trick or treat. We just did it from 4 to 5. Everybody thought it was very positive, and we want to do it again next year. It was nice to see people coming into the building for reasons other than maybe just to come pay your taxes, or we used to say over at the courthouse, pay your taxes and go to court. So I just also wanted to make you guys aware of that in case someone mentions that too. That was the first year that we participated in that. We did not use any county taxpayer dollars to do it. We just used we donated the candy and stuff, but it was, I think, well received too. So.
And the costumes were cute. On October 15th, in rain and cold wind, I watched the pipeline break simulation that was conducted near Basin. It was really interesting and informative, and was very well orchestrated by our emergency manager. Thank you, Bob. At 7 that same evening, I tore back to town and attended the Weed Board meeting, which provided a wrap-up for spraying gophers and West Nile. As of 10/8, there were 135 human cases of West Nile, 7 being in Brookings County. There were no gopher bounties requested yet. All townships were sprayed by the 24th with a little late follow-up. The DOT was done September 20th, and 1 truck quit working. They were not quite sure yet at that meeting what the problem was with it, but I'm guessing that we'll be informed later. October 16th, I also attended the Delta Chi Supper. I love going and chatting with those young people. I had 2 extremely good-looking young guys that I ate dinner with. It was really very pleasant. October 17th, I attended the E911 meeting, as did Commissioner Larson, I believe. Did you forget about that? I don't think there was too much that we needed to report on that, though, that I can recall. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, I attended the pod exercise at ULC, where flu shots were given to the daycare children and their families. And again, it's a great learning experience, and it isn't something that we have to attend, but I feel, for myself, I feel like I need to understand what those emergency exercises are all about, and so that if we ever get in a situation where we have a real situation, we have people that know what's going on. And Bob does an excellent job. Prior to that 3 o'clock deal, at 12 o'clock that same day, I had a very busy day that day. I had 3 different meetings I went to, but I went to a housing meeting, and the funding still looks bleak. And the government shutdown had everything kind of stopped at that time. one thing that's notable is that they may need to find new office space for monetary reasons, so they'll be looking at that. On October 18th, I went to the open house at ULC, and I did that because they thanked the county for our contribution along the generator lines, and so I thought it was appropriate that somebody from the county went. On the 25th, I went to the Boys and Girls Club social, which was very nice. My brother gets a lot of credit for starting the Boys and Girls Club. I know he did. And so that kind of becomes near and dear to me, too. On October 28th, of course, we had the Walk a Mile. As a victim of domestic abuse, I cannot tell you, commissioners, how much I appreciated your participation. Very, very much. On the 31st, I attended the Raven Open House. It's where technology combines, they join forces with SDSU. I found it interesting that they brought the technology end of DSU into the mix as well. I think that's wonderful that we all partner along those lines, and I really, really enjoyed that. And again, thank you, commissioners, for all being there. On the 31st, I also attended the domestic abuse meeting. We're attempting to fill board positions, and they had a rummage sale on November 2nd, and they didn't have the figures yet, so I don't know how much they collected on the Walk a Mile, but it was a lot, and I too would like to reiterate the thank yous that the other commissioners gave the county. I was so proud of you guys, your bake sales, every effort that you did, and the domestic abuse board was very, very impressed at what you all did. So I would like to thank you again for that. And then the other thing is that I have calendars, and I'll bring those up and leave those with Stephanie. And we're in the back of the calendar if you haven't seen them. They're $15, and of course that all goes back to the Domestic Abuse Board. So I'll leave those in Stephanie's office if anybody who hasn't already purchased would be interested in purchasing them. And that's all I have. And so I'd like a motion. Yes.
Madam Chair, Tom, you didn't walk, but that's fine. But they've got the calendars for $15, but if you give them 20, they'll keep it. Right? That's right. Right, Stephanie? Yeah. The other thing, I didn't mention the Rail Authority meeting, and besides being an alarm clock for Danny, our other item of business was, and here again, Abby done an outstanding job for us in putting together the resolution or the directive so that we extend our time frame a little bit with the loan for the Novita to get that project up and running and meet the deadlines and things like that. And that was the reason that we had the meeting. The other thing, yes, we are possibly going to be changing one of our members, and so we, as a board, we're talking about how we should proceed with that, because we're a taxing entity. Should we all be elected folks, or can we have industry involved in it? So.
Okay, I need a motion for us to go into executive session. Motion by Falcon, second by Wyseth. All in favor, or call the roll.
Falcon, Larson, Wyseth,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. I saw that.